Ladies and gentlemen, breadwinners and thread spinners, welcome to the T&F Podcast. My name is Jay Curtis Strickland, your favorite bipolar rock and roller. Click on that like button, click on the subscribe button, share this video, do all that good generic YouTube stuff. Today in the house, we have a really interesting man here. This is Mr. John Carter from the band Rise or Rot. He was, yeah, I got it. He was a former North Carolina native. He's sort of an entrepreneur. John Carter, the failed Disney movie. What's going on?
Hey, not a whole lot. How you doing?
I am outstanding, sir. So tell me a little bit about yourself, sir. What do you got going on in the works? You are a hardcore veteran of North Carolina.
Yeah, well, basically, actually, as of today, I've been back in Sioux City, Iowa for 2 years. I moved back 2 years ago after living in Havelock/Cherry Point, North Carolina from 2007 till 2 years ago. And in that whole time, a chunk of that time, I sang for the ill-fated hardcore band Down to This. We were around for about good 10 years and some change, put out a few releases with some different labels, played with some of our favorite bands, intermingled with the NCHC, North Carolina hardcore scene back then. And basically, like a lot of people, COVID turned my life and my world upside down. And I'm originally from Sioux City, Iowa. So I came back here to kind of just sort of like refresh and reset and kind of like found myself in a few different projects over the past 2 years. The thing of it is I kind of like made the experimental move of trying to continue some projects that I had in North Carolina here with guys from here, because there's guys here that I've known for ages, since the early to mid 90s. And I had a band called Locomotive Gun for a while, from about 2013 until about 2019, kind of like a Motorhead kind of punk rock band, while I was doing Down to This, kind of off and on with various different members, and came back, tried to get that off the ground, got some played with Faster Pussycat, played with some other great bands and stuff like that, because we were kind of like a rock and roll punk kind of thing, did that for a little bit, and then just kind of that sort of fizzled out. And then I had some guys that wanted to do Down to This, give that a shot, to kind of like, try a whole new environment, whole new part of the country, kind of just a whole new chapter. And some things run their course, and we had some really good shows, and met some great people. And just after like a few shows, our drummer, him being a single dad and having a demanding job, decided that he wanted to just focus on his other local band and being a dad. And so we just kind of all amicably agreed that, Down to This was, it was cool that we tried doing it again, but it ran its course. So me and Nick Goodwin, the one of the guitar players from Down to This, started a band called Rise or Rot. And it's kind of like it's kind of like a hardcore adjacent, if you will. Like, it's got some shades of Life of Agony, some shades of like Vision of Disorder, and then it's definitely got like some Marauder, Fury of Five kind of vibe to it. It's cool. It's fun because we're all older guys that we love metal, we love hardcore, we love just kind of like the alternative metal of like the 90s and the early 2000s, for lack of a better way to put it, and kind of how it all meshed in with like the underground metal and hardcore scene, and decided we're just gonna play what comes out, and so far, it's a kind of like a healthy mix of kind of like, rock and post-hardcore mixed with like tough guy beatdown shit, with kind of like a Sworn Enemy, Marauder kind of vibe mixed with Life of Agony, and we're just kind of going with it. And so far so good. We got a drummer, a young kid named Carter. His first name is Carter, my last name is Carter, so that's freaking bizarre. Yeah, everybody calls me Carter, and because my first name's John, I might as well just be like, my first name's basically just packing material. You open the box and you throw it away. John, the most generic name in the world. So everyone just called me Carter, and then having a dad in the military, so it was like, oh, you're Carter's kid. So anyway, so my drummer's name is Carter. He's a 22-year-old kid, just awesome. Me and him met one day when I was actually heading to go see Exodus and Anthrax in Omaha, about 2 hours from here. And he was working at the gas station. I was wearing a Bathory hoodie. He's like, "Oh, you like Bathory?" I'm like, "Oh, I fucking love Bathory. I love old school black metal and and death metal and shit." And so we just kind of like, he gave me his number, and then some time went by and I lost. Total old school. You write down the number on like a punch card or some bullshit, and then you put it in your wallet and you forget about it. You know what I mean? And then I saw him again. He's like, "Hey, I haven't gotten a call from you." I'm like, "Oh fuck, I totally flaked. Give me your number again." So it was funny how it kind of worked out, because Down to This had kind of fallen apart, and we needed a drummer. And so this kid just stepped up, and he was fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like great, great attitude, super tight player, nice kit, nice equipment is definitely a plus, and just fucking down. First band he's ever been in. He's jammed with some people and stuff like that, but it's just having that youthful energy. I mean, I'm 47 and he's 22, so it's kind of like my oldest son is 22. So it's really fucking strange. But Carter's an amazing dude, and Nick is my guitar player. Nick is just fucking a solid veteran of the scene around here, and Paul, our bass player, is just a fucking man mountain of awesomeness. Just this big badass motherfucker that he plays guitar, plays bass, everything. Super fucking sweet dude. Totally the most drama free. It's almost, me and my guitar player talking today how dull our group chat is, because there's no drama. You know what I mean? And so it's a nice place to be. So yeah, it's just a whole new chapter, brand new band. I'm not trying to rehash any old shit, not trying to keep anything going, just, it's fucking weird, because I was in Down to This for, off and on for about 13 years. And then I did Locomotive Gun off and on. I mean, just, it's just kind of one of those deals, you've been in numerous bands and you've been a musician for a long time, if you can't find the right combination of dudes, it just doesn't fucking work out.
Right.
You're either pushing it along or you're dragging people. But I mean, we're in a good spot. I mean, we're just starting out. We're playing our first show August 5th at the Four Winds Music and Art Fest in Sioux City. There's everything from really cool indie hip hop to punk rock to metal, all kinds of stuff. And Corey Church from Nice Enough Promotions, he's putting it on. It's kind of like a yearly thing that we do here. They have one in Omaha, Sioux Falls, here. I want to say maybe Des Moines. It's just kind of like a regional thing, but with just everything hardcore, punk, everything. It's fucking sweet. So that's our first show. We're probably gonna get 10 minutes on stage, and there we go. And then we're playing our second show, opening for one of my favorite bands ever, LA Guns. So it's fucking crazy, man, like how that kind of works out. And then our third show is a really cool homecoming show for some people from that grew up here. The Convictions from Seattle, great fucking avant-garde hardcore band, with members of guys and bands I was with in the 90s in bands, and then Gut Eater, which is a fucking amazing noise, kind of like harsh noise, power electronics thing, and then Glue, who are basically, to me, they're one of the best bands in this area. They got elements of Christian death, a lot of that San Diego Gravity Records kind of vibe, a very Bauhausy kind of thing with keyboards, and just very fucking powerful fucking band. And then this band called Make Them Endure, which is this girlfriend and boyfriend or husband and wife duo that just plays just really interesting kind of like just indie rock storytelling type stuff, and really eclectic show. Anyway, I mean, sorry to lose everybody with all the fucking details, but anyway, so we got this new band and we've got 3 shows we're excited for coming up, and we're recording our first EP in EP or demo, whatever you want to call it, like in a couple of weeks. And we got a couple of labels that I've talked to that I've worked with in the past that are interested in seeing what we're doing. But it's a labor of love at this point. You know what I mean? We're older and we're doing this because we love it, and we've all got either, my kids are grown, and grown out of the house, got one in the Air Force and one in college, and the other guys have younger kids, but everybody's like a lifer. So it's just we've all kind of landed in a really good spot, with a good group of dudes that do it because they love it and we like being around each other. So that's a plus.
That is That is very awesome, man. Now let me ask you this question: as far as influences go, what do you remember of like your coming up in the hardcore scene? Like, what was your first show? What do what do you take away from that? What kind of gripped you into hardcore, so to speak?
Well, the crazy thing was, I think it was remember when Bad Brains Quickness came out,
Oh yeah.
and in the Soulcraft video, right?
Well, it was a little
So
before my time, but I definitely knew the Bad Brains. Yeah.
yeah, that was like 1991 or whatever, 1991.
Yeah, I would have been in 3rd grade, 3rd or 4th
That's so
grade.
crazy because, like I told you the other day, dude, I thought you were like my age. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
no.
that's but we're kind of sort of close to the same generations,
Yeah,
but no. So like, yeah, I see the video for Quickness by Bad Brains on Headbangers Ball, and then I see the video for Anthem by Agnostic Front, that fucking crazy live at the CBGB's video, and I'm like, this, what the fuck is this shit? And then lo and behold, I go down to this place in Omaha, which was about an hour and a half from where I lived, where I always went and bought records and skateboarded and stuff. And I see these flyers for Agnostic Front with Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, and Malevolent Creation at a fucking FOE hall, right? And I'm like, holy shit, I fucking love Obituary. You know what I mean? And because I got into like death metal and thrash before I got into hardcore. And so I go and see, I go to the show, and like Cannibal Corpse was opening, and that was when Chris Barnes was singing for them. So I'm at the show, and like, it's just long hairs and skaters and shit like this. And Cannibal Corpse goes on, and then I'm like, fuck, that was fucking sick. And then all of a sudden, the fucking room, the fucking whole place is just full of skinheads, not Nazis, not boneheads, but real fucking skinheads.
sure.
Real fucking, yeah. Anyway, so tons of skinheads, dudes like in black hoodies with X's on their hands for some reason, and shit like this. Just fucking just showed up that weren't there before. Agnostic Front goes on, and fuck, dude, the place just explodes. And me and my friends are standing up against the wall. We're like, what the hell is this? This is fucking insane. We love it. Fucking Freddie from Madball, who's Roger's brother. He was like maybe like, I don't know, he was like around my age, he was like 12, or like 14, between 14 and 17, gets up there,
Yeah,
he's singing. It's just fucking nuts. I mean, the bass player from Obituary, is playing bass with them on Crucified. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. They're breaking all the conventional rules of everything that I've ever seen, And so I'm
sure.
like, I gotta fuck with the Agnostic Front, big time. But I'd seen the video beforehand, so I kind of knew about him a little bit. Didn't know what
Yeah.
hardcore was, and so it was crazy, Obituary headline, great fucking show, da da da. And then as we're leaving, I see a fucking flyer on a pole for Bad Brains, and I'm like, that's that fucking one band. So, like, I don't know, maybe it was the following weekend or a couple weeks later, I go fucking see the Bad Brains with 7 seconds, and I'm like,
Oh,
holy shit, dude!
wow.
I think within the same month or within the same like season, I see fucking Bad Brains, 7 seconds, and Agnostic Front, and I'm just kind of like. So I go to the record store, to just buy some shit, and I'm looking for anything that's got dudes with shaved heads, dudes with dreadlocks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but then, being a skateboarder, the great thing about skateboarding getting me into music was it got me into really good hip hop. It got me into fucking, really good like new wave and alternative stuff, Bauhaus, Joy Division and stuff. But like there was this thing where like people that were into hardcore, they weren't long hairs. They weren't, guys with mohawks. They were dudes, in hoodies with fucking Doc Martens or like sneakers, and I'm just kind of like, I didn't really feel I fit in any of those other areas. So, I really kind of warmed up to hardcore, and, but like in the meantime, of course, grunge hits, and I got super into fucking, growing up in a small town in Iowa. I'm like, okay, fuck yeah, Pearl Jam is the shit, Nirvana is the shit. And then, and then I go fucking, see, Mudhoney and then whatever. And then I want one of everything, and so then I start playing in bands, and then, but like, I fall in love with straight edge through Minor Threat and through Youth of Today. And I'm like, I don't drink, smoke, do any drugs or whatever, but I'm a weirdo skater kid, and so it's just kind of, there was this whole other like realm, this whole other world to the underground music that I'm just like, this is fucking weird. It's not metal, it's not this weird punk stuff or whatever. What the fuck is it? So I was really, really intrigued by it, and like, after seeing Bad Brains in 7 seconds, and I just go to any fucking extreme music show that would happen, and then, then I just kind of like, just started just kind of like, collecting everything and then researching everything and trying to learn what I could. And, just always kind of been all over the place. I love everything from hip hop to black metal to death metal. Kiss is my favorite band in the entire world. They're my fucking like my gateway band, right? So I tried to reconcile my love of Kiss and my love of Sick of It All and Biohazard and Madball and shit. I'm like, and then I fucking read interviews. I'm like, oh yeah, fucking, Evan Seinfeld from Biohazard, fucking, his first concert was Kiss or whatever the fuck. That might be totally wrong, but you know what I'm saying?
That seems to be a lot of metal and hardcore guys. They seem to be really into Kiss. I've, to be truthful, I have not explored much of Kiss's discography, but their fans are so rabid, man.
Well, they're a gateway band, and like Cedric Bixler from At the Drive-In would always say, like in interviews and everything, and that's kind of like how him and I bonded when At the Drive-In would always come through Sioux City and stuff. We'd talk about music, and he had a love for New York hardcore, and he loved Kiss, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm a straight edge kid that loves Kiss, blah blah blah, and then I'm finding there's other fucking freaks in the hardcore scene where like there was really no rules. The great thing about the '90s hardcore is you had bands like fucking, Born Against and Charles Bronson. And then you had fucking One Life Crew and Fury of Five. And then you had like Threadbare and Coalesce and then 108 and then Shelter, and it was everybody liked whatever, And so growing up in the '90s in the hardcore scene was fucking awesome. I mean, I'd go see hardcore shows and I'd see a band where I remember I saw it was like Weston with the Get Up Kids and Turmoil or something like that. You know what I mean? And then it was just like, pop punk bands, emo bands, and ska bands would play with straight up moshy, bulldoze type bands. And it was because we all like that type of stuff,
Sure.
And, but like I always gravitated towards New York hardcore. I always gravitated towards stuff that was fast, but then it had a groove, and seeing Agnostic Front at a really young age kind of inspired a lot of shit. And then the first real band I was ever in was this band called Victims Anonymous. And we were like, if you can imagine, kind of like a cross between Murphy's Law and Minor Threat is basically kind of what it was. Okay. It was like sleazy rock and roll, bordering on, on street rock a little bit with fast, like Minor Threat kind of hardcore vibe, and then in the, early to mid '90s, like say from 94 to 90, like 94, 95, playing shows in a punk rock bands were playing with hardcore bands and emo bands and this, and and the scene that was kind of like up the street from us, about an hour away in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, had a place called the Pomp Room. And dude, I saw Sick of It All with Orange 9mm there. Dude, I saw fucking Warzone right before Rabies died. Just stuff like that, just kind of being around for the stuff that happened in the '90s, and I'm just kind of like, it just kind of made me love it. And then kind of like fast forward to like 2008, I moved to North Carolina, from Sioux City, Iowa, after moving back and forth from different places over the years and being in, I was in a band called Eclipse of Eden for a while. We were kind of like screamo scrams, kind of like, San Diego, like if you can imagine kind of like Unbroken meets Wannabe Locust kind of stuff,
Unbroken
and so I toured with that band.
Is playing this weekend. They're doing their reunion show.
That's crazy. I'll have to send you.
Fucking be there, man.
Dude, they were probably one of my favorite bands in the '90s. I mean, they were a straight edge band of dudes that wore fucking like ties and dressed up and looked fucking cool, right. And and they slicked back hair and shit, and like they had X's on their hands, and they'd just go ape shit, and their fucking lyrics were just so intense and like, it was kind of like, it was like, emotional lyrics with fucking heavy, brutal music, and just swag. You know what I mean? They were so fucking stylish. And we tried to emulate that in Eclipse of Eden while we were into like the San Diego bands like the Swing Kids, and then we were also, me and the singer Rusty, we were like into Zayo, and a lot of that. I was never a Christian kid, but I loved a lot of that Face Down record stuff, and it was the solid state, Face Down, all that shit. And It was 1996, 97, and we went on a fucking East Coast tour and everything like that, so it's just kind of like I've been dipping my finger in, but I was always the oddball. Like when I was in, Cliffs of Eden, I looked exactly how I do now. I was a fucking, shaved head, black t-shirt, X's on my hands, throwing my bass around and shit like that, while the other guys looked fucking cool with their black hair and their, and their cool clothes and stuff like that, but I was like always like, I should have been in Earth Crisis playing with dudes in fucking, Unbroken or Swing Kids, but so I did that band for a while, and then I left. I moved to North Carolina the first time in like 1999, and they kind of carried on with another bass player, and they added another guitar player because one of our guys left, and they put out an EP, and then they toured, and just kind of blew up down. They in Florida and just different areas. I mean, there's people that are like selling their fucking like the EP after I left out of the band on Depop for like $150 or whatever, just shit like that. So, it's just I've always kind of like been that dude that's been on the fringe. Like, like my friends were in bands that blew the fuck up. I was in the band before the band blew up. You know what I mean? It's like it's just like fuck. I never really kind of I mean, you kind of like from what you've kind of told about your past history playing in bands, you were kind of like on the fringe of like shit that was blown up, but you weren't like in it, but you were around it and of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a little disenfranchising for a musician when it's like you're right at the cusp of something, right when it's about ready to blow up, and then it's for whatever reason you're not in it anymore. And I always equate that to being like, I mean, I like to consider myself a somewhat pious person. I'm not the best practicing pious person, but at the same time, I feel like that's a God moment, like where you're meant to take a shift in your life and you're meant to do something different. I've always came back to hardcore, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I still have lessons to learn. I still have things that I need to do in my life in order to mature as a human being. So my experience with that was not so bad, like I don't chalk it up as like a loss per se. I consider it to be more of like a learning experience, so and kudos to all my friends' bands that went on and did amazing things, so for what it's worth, I think it's just like a natural progression of being a human,
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about it is it's almost kind of like, say you were in a situation where you could have been involved, and like, but you know what? The me of then would have fucked it up. You know what I mean? Yep. Or like the me back then wasn't ready for that, or or like, you ever been around people that they're willing to deal with like not really mediocrity, but just kind of like the minutia and the shitty part of it, when you're like, no, we need to step back and develop this thing real quick before we fucking throw it out there. And then these guys are like, just go ahead and just throw it out there, and and good for them, because sometimes they'll just do that and just keep going, and then it'll even though they threw the kind of like the not so perfect product out there, and then it becomes that product, and they just keep going, member changes, this and that, or just kind of like just keeping it going. And it doesn't say anything bad about them or you or me for that matter being in that situation. It's just kind of like, like you weren't, not just in general, you just weren't on the same page, and right. It doesn't mean, that anybody's doing anything wrong or bad. It's just kind of like, you're just like, you know what, I could quit my job and eat fucking 25-cent Little Debbie cakes every day and just practice 4 times a week and not have a fucking, a girlfriend and you know what I mean? It's just like, but because you think about like Black Flag, they're sitting there, they're sharing like the wrapper of a Snickers, and they're all licking the Snickers wrapper. You know what I mean? Because that's the only food they get, that week. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, dude, I don't know about you, but I don't want to live like that. Fuck that. You know what I mean? It's like, my problem is there's too many things I wanted to do and too many things that I liked, to where it's kind of like, I knew what I liked, but I think when you're still kind of trying to find your niche or find yourself and kind of find what defines you, you really, not that you can't commit to something, you have commitment issues. It's just kind of like, I'm not ready to go all in with this thing yet, because, I don't want to, I don't want to miss out on a certain opportunity because I'm afraid I'm focusing in the wrong area. I mean, that's a paranoia of my own. It's like I always tell people, like, you know what? If I find myself running really, really fast up the wrong hill, it's just like, fuck, you actually, if you would have just stayed down at the bottom of the hill and then just kind of went over behind this tree, you would have found what you wanted. But you know what, that at the top of that hill, that's gotta be what I want. So I'm just going to go up there, and a lot of people will do that. And it's just kind of like, in terms of kind of doing a band or whatever, it's like, it's networking and putting in the reps and just kind of like refining what you want. And then sometimes through doing that over and over again, you sort of kind of like you gain a taste for what is real and genuine, and a taste for what it is that drives what you really want to do. And it kind of all comes down to what they say, what the definition of luck is. It's preparation meeting opportunity. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of like, I feel that with certain things, I'm on a stage right now with the guys I'm playing music with now, the current job that I do, to make money, the house that me and my wife just moved into, it was like all the shit that I went through prepared me to find these awesome things that, sure, where I'm at in my life. I mean, some people fall into it in their early 20s. It took me till I was fucking 47, and luckily everybody thinks I'm, younger than I am, which is great. So it's like, I'm a young 47 because I'm perpetually stuck at age 17 in a lot of ways. So it's just kind of like, I think that, when I was in Down to This for like a good majority of 10 years, we changed drummers, like, a few drummers, we changed bass players, and we changed guitarists a couple times. And it hit a certain point where it's like, okay, we've done all we could. We toured very little spurts, little weekends and shit, and we opened up and played with some of our favorite bands ever, and my thing is kind of like what you were saying earlier. It's like, if it's like a God moment, it's like, okay, this is what that band was supposed to do. You know what I mean? That band wasn't supposed to do any more than it did. It was supposed to prepare everybody involved for what's next. If you know what I'm saying? Sure. Even though we were in it for going on 10 years, I mean, dude, 5 years of that seemed like a lifetime. But then again, there was a certain time where we go, holy shit, do you realize you've been doing this for 3 years? You know what I mean? And you just go and go and go, and you got your head down, and you don't come up for air. And then you realize all this time's gone by. And then, like I said before, you find yourself, okay, well, we're running up this hill really fucking fast and exhausting ourselves when what we want is not at the top of the hill. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And it's just, just kind of getting back to your original point and original question. It's just kind of like, I came back here and I was thinking, okay, on paper, the idea of doing a new lineup of Down to This with new guys sounds like it would work, because we've got some releases out that are, that are online for streaming and stuff. And people that know me probably only know me because of that band. And so, okay, cool. It just makes sense. Let's just kind of keep it going with new guys, and if they're game, whatever. But it's just, it just didn't, the original songwriter of the band wasn't in the band anymore, Right. And so it just kind of fizzled out, and then like when, and when I was doing Locomotive Gun, the other band I was playing guitar and singing, and, I've had people that tell me, like, okay, well, this is really good or whatnot, but like, the funniest thing is, since we were very much like a Motorhead type, we were a 3-piece band, just bass, guitar, and drums, and I was on vocals and guitar. We play a show and we're trying to play with, these punk and roll bands and these fucking other bands, and we'd see kids fucking like, two-stepping and like, ninja kicking in the pit. We're like, what are you doing? And I talked to them like, oh man, you guys are fucking awesome. It's cool. There's a hardcore band on this punk show. And I'm like, oh, who's playing? Like, you guys. I'm like, no. And my drummer was like, dude, he's saying that because basically you are like the token hardcore guy, and it's just like, so it's like, no matter what you do, the way that I sing, I was singing the same way in Locomotive Gun as I was singing it Down to This, and I'm still up there with a fucking X tattooed on my hand. And it's just like, they're like, dude, you are just, whether, for better or worse, fail or success, you're just that hardcore guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, and so it's just kind of like, I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, I'm kind of thinking about just selling all my guitars, and then just kind of just focusing on just doing vocals, because, sure, when I was playing guitar, it was just things didn't quite click and didn't quite connect, because I kind of found my niche. But of course, like when you're doing something for a long time and things don't quite blow up the way you want it to, or, the rock star dreams and that bullshit, or the really cool scene cred in hardcore doesn't quite come, and you're like, okay, well maybe I should try something else, but no, it's just kind of, I just sort of fell into what I'm doing right now. And and like I said before, I mean, if we sound like Stone Temple Pilots, meets, fucking whatever, but I'm up there jumping around with a mic in my hand. Hey man, I like your new hardcore band. Like, okay, well, fuck it. I guess we're a hardcore band.
I hear you, man. And it's interesting. Two things I wanted to point out on that. There's this meme that's going around where it says, there's a picture of a valley or a pit, and then it says hardcore, and then it shows the valley of the pit, and it says my dreams. And that, or no, excuse me. Let me reframe this again. It says my dreams, and it shows it on the other end of this chasm, and then it says hardcore at the bottom of this chasm. And I'm like, I don't think that that's necessarily true, because, for example, with this channel, I was like, I've always wanted to, I've played in a few projects, but I said, okay, I want to do something that's hardcore themed, but that I could kind of do on my own, And so with that, I've taken what I've learned from hardcore and just transferred it to a different medium. So I don't think that that is necessarily true. And what you're saying about the token hardcore guy, I've always found that to be interesting when you see bands with that are completely aesthetically and stylistically different with said token hardcore guy. Like, for example, Paul Janae is in the band And I Become Death. And you remind me a lot of him, actually. But he's in that band, and it's a bunch of just stoner metal looking dudes, and then him with the tattoos and token straight edge guy, And so,
yes,
I don't necessarily, like I'm saying, I don't think hardcore or any of that necessarily fits one mold. In fact, I've even thought about branching out and doing other genres. Like I was like, you know what? If an outlaw country band asked me to join them, I'd probably do it, just to get something different in the mix, and to kind of increase my palette and say, well, I did this and I did that, and not for anyone else, but just for my own edification, just to see how it goes type thing.
Yeah. And what you make a really good point, because if you look at, since at least since the 90s, because I'll just reference the 90s because that was, my era. So many great, do-it-yourself DIY companies and self-made entrepreneurs and successful media icons and influencers came up in the hardcore scene. You know what I mean? Like that famous chef Matty Matheson. I think he was actually Madball's roadie or some shit.
Wow.
And yeah, and Brandon Chapetti from Bleeding Through, he runs Rise Above Fitness. And I could go. Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on. And the thing of it is, there's different podcasts that I listen to. I mean, most of the podcasts I listen to are music podcasts as well. And they talk about the DIY work ethic. And let's just say, for all intent and purposes, to generalize, punk rock. If you come from punk rock, it's hardcore. It's not so much hardcore adjacent, but hardcore comes from punk rock. And then if you come from punk rock and you are serious about what the fuck you do, you're going to probably be more successful and work harder than somebody that was given a trust fund, or somebody who just was, I want to dabble in this or whatever. Cause it's just kind of what I named my new band. It's Rise or Rot. Because either you fucking do it, or you're just going to fucking rot and watch the rest of the world go by. And you're going to talk about, I should have done this, or remember when I did such and such. So somebody who comes from punk rock, hey, I want to start a restaurant. They're going to fucking grind, sleepless nights to get it going. And they're going to do it with a fucking a punk rock ethos, not as in kind of not to make money or to be political, but it's just kind of I want to do this my fucking self. And I want to do this for my people, by my people. And, and then try to bring other people that might be outside of my world into my world, and expose them to something that they would have never really come across. I mean, because there's amazing, cupcake bakeries and awesome cookie stores that are run by punk rockers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just a great thing. And what you're saying about doing like an outlaw country band, I mean, I love it when I'll go see a band and I'm like, oh shit, this is a sick outlaw country band, or this is like just a really cool, just alternative band of some sort that just kind of has that, like, and like there's something about them, and then it's just like, then the guy gets off stage and he's got a fucking Sick of It All Dragon tattoo. I'm like, oh, okay,
Right.
you come from hardcore, okay, you know what I mean?
Hank
There's
III,
just
man.
like that.
Hank Williams III, man. He's such a you should see his record collection that he has. It's all like old like punk and crust and metal and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah. And then this dude's up there playing country and all sorts of, different permutations of music. And so I always find that to be really fascinating. And, you've got somebody like Anthony Bourdain, who grew up in the punk scene. Another prime example of somebody that was a DIY punk dude that just went off and did his own thing, and I find that to be really endearing, truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, I was telling somebody when they were talking about like, okay, you ever had it where there's a band, somebody hears a band like, oh, I like them, and you're like, oh, no, I don't, I don't fuck with that band, and they're like, well, why? Sounds like the stuff that you listen to, and I'm like, okay, to you, it sounds like something that I would listen to,
right?
But like, I happen to know that there's a certain vibe, a certain aura, a certain thing. Like, okay, tired fucking example. Let's say
Slipknot.
A band like Five Finger Death Punch, right? So Slipknot, yeah.
Sure, them
See,
too.
You know what's crazy about Slipknot? Slipknot, they are, three of the guys are old friends of mine. They're from Iowa. They're from Des Moines. And I was in a band called the Victims Anonymous, and we were like that punk rock kind of Minor Threat meets Murphy's Law kind of band. And Sean Cran, he ran a bar called the Safari in Des Moines, and we played there. And when Slipknot was starting out, they were kind of like a Mr. Bungle kind of thing, kind of a circus clown, music mixed with metal and whatnot, and so they were kind of like that thing. And then they got Mick Thompson on guitar and whatever. But anyway, and then Corey Taylor joined. But the thing of it is, though, I got to be close with Paul Gray and Sean and for a brief period of time, Joey Jordison. Those dudes listened to Madball, Cro-Mags, Earth Crisis, Corrosion Conformity. Those guys all came from punk rock. They all came from hardcore, and they all came from underground extreme music. And that's just the thing. Like, Ross Robinson puts his stamp on their first album, and they emphasize what Sid was doing with the turntables in this. Okay, it's this new wave of new metal, blah, blah, blah. Bands can kind of get bastardized by their fans. Like there's bands that I've ignored because I can't stand their fan base and I'm not going to fuck with their music. And then I'm like, oh, who the hell is this? They're like, oh, that's so-and-so. I'm like, really? I had no fucking idea that's what they sounded like, because I see these douchebags wearing their fucking shirts, or I see these fucking, 13-year-old kids, with dog collars, and fucking, fishnet sleeves wearing. I'm like, I'm not going to fuck with that. It's whatever, And then it's just kind of like, really? And then you dig deeper and go, oh, dude, Marilyn Manson, he was really into fucking good shit. You know what I mean? And you find out these other dudes, and then it's just kind of like, with my point about like Five Finger Death Punch, like, it's just like, I remember reading an article about their singer. He was in that band Moto Grader, and just kind of through putting two and two together over the years, I'm pretty sure that by him being in Moto Grader and who they were, kind of like a band that was getting ready to kind of pop for a little bit, they're kind of like an industrial sort of band with kind of like stage makeup and all that. They fizzled out, and then all of a sudden this band Five Finger Death Punch comes out of fucking nowhere, just huge. Overproduced, super fucking production, da 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 da. Come to find out that like their guitar player was Mandy Moore's guitar player. So essentially, it was a bunch of studio guys that wanted to play some heavy shit. And around the time when fucking Killswitch Engage and Unearth and As I Lay Dying and All That Remains and the whole sort of kind of like Ozfest metalcore thing was blown up, this band comes out. I'm like, okay, well, shit, yeah, the time is right for this kind of music. So let's just throw them in the mix. And so there was people that just didn't give a shit as long as it was heavy. They dug them. And there's people like me that were like, No, you are persona non grata. You are not fucking welcome here. You did not, to the best of my
I know
fucking
that
limited
feeling.
knowledge. You know what I mean? It's like you didn't fucking come from, you didn't play at CBGBs, you didn't play at the fucking wetlands, you didn't go on, on tour in a van, with agnostic front and blah blah blah. You didn't fucking pay your dues. I didn't fucking know. Who knows? And then come to
Right.
find out that the guitar player wrote all their music, then they fucking found people to play blah blah blah. I could be completely wrong, but just through the grapevine, you hear this kind of stuff, whatever, and then you hear them on the radio, and it's just like you're just kind of like, okay, I know who this is for, and it's not for me, you know.
Yeah.
And but people are like, well, dude, it's heavy. They got fucking breakdowns and shit, and whatever. And the guy's fucking like, he sounds badass, like it sounds like a UFC fighter up there. And I'm like, nah, dude, it's just like it's like it's like basically like real
Real.
recognizes real, like that
Sure.
fucking like that Ice Pick song, fucking Jamie Jostin, fucking
Yeah.
Lord Ezek
I know
from
the song. Yeah.
Crown of Thorns had that fucking dude, yeah, dude. And I remember hearing that and just like, and then Ice T, I love Ice T. And like, I used to follow his podcast for a while before he stopped doing it. But he always talked about kind of like real recognizes real. It's like, you go up there and you can tell if people, it's like you ever seen like a band on stage where it's just kind of like, you love them because you know that they fucking love what they're doing. They're happy on stage. They're feeling it. They're not like, it's not contrived. It's not like, okay, well, on the heavy part, I got to fucking squat down and fucking headbang. It's like, I'm fucking like throwing my guitar around because I'm feeling what I'm doing so much. And then I
Sure.
think growing up, on punk rock and hardcore, you can kind of feel that from bands. And then it's just like, but the thing of it is though, as fucked up as it sounds, there's a place for bands like Five Finger Death Punch and these other bands, because there are people out there that they want to fucking a soundtrack to fucking throwing darts and drinking beers with their boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's people that were like, I want a soundtrack to my life. I want to fucking know everything about this fucking band. I want to fucking meet them. I want to fucking hang out. It's just like there's a culture, and I think if you come from a music scene where there's a tangible culture and and a whole thing to where you feel like you're a part of it, you feel like it's yours, and you protect it, and then somebody comes along who's like out of fucking nowhere, and then Five Finger Death Punch was slightly not like pre-internet, but it was kind of like they kind of popped up around when magazines were still a thing and CD buying was a thing. So there's some of those bands that escaped, like in Indiana Jones when the fucking wall's going down, he fucking he makes it through. There's a handful of bands like and like not that they're in the same league or the same type of band, but like bands like fucking Hatebreed, Avenged Sevenfold, and these bands that kind of escaped underneath the wall
Yeah.
as it was coming down. And they got their fan base before the industry died, and
Yeah.
stuff. And so it's just kind of like being a dude my age that's seen the pre-internet and then the nobody buys
Sure.
CDs anymore world. Your view
When
of it
I was
all is different.
when I was coming up, it was yeah, probably like 97, so I kind of came in on the trail end of it. And, a lot of these bands started to fizzle out whenever, I started. I mean, Hatebreed, God, I remember Satisfaction. I still laud that album as one of the best hardcore albums ever. And,
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
just saw that they were really, really making moves, and to be able to play with them on their Perseverance tour, like that was incredible. And I mean, that album's a lifesaver for me. Like that people say that old cliche of that album saved my life. That was at a point in my life when I was just at my most low, probably not most low, but one of my biggest lows when, when I got out of the military. And it was just like, I picked up that album and I was like, Perseverance. I was like, fuck yes. I was totally into it. And it just gave me this renewed strength. And anytime I'm kind of feeling down or whatever, I throw that album on, and I'm like, let's make things happen, fuck, who cares, like, let's just keep going. And, to kind of touch on what you were saying about the whole, real recognizes real. I do really appreciate Slipknot as a band. I think they're incredible musicians, and I think their stage show is fucking impressive. And like harken back to Kiss, they've almost got this Kiss type vibe, where they've got the the
Mm-hmm.
costumes and the pyrotechnics and what have you. But I've got a neighbor who loves Slipknot, but I'll show him something like Bleeding Through, And I'm like, you don't like this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, it took me the longest time to figure out he likes stuff that is in the collective ether that he can like, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody else kind of likes, you know, and I try to turn him on to other things and he's like, nah, I don't like this. And I'm like, what don't you like about it? Like, do like, I don't understand like how you can like this and not like that. Do you understand?
Yeah. Well, see, I think you ever, there's a species of person that if they didn't discover it on their own, God forbid you fucking try to get them into something because it's just like, you think you know everything? You think you're better than me because you fucking know about this underground band? Because the fact that they've discovered something, they kind of feel like that makes them cool. Dude, I'm from the mixtape generation. I'd fucking like, oh, dude, I'd go home and like, I'd meet somebody really cool. They had some shit in common. And I'd bust out all my fucking 7 inches, you know, and then CDs and records and shit like that. And I would make a fucking mix. I'd fill a 90-minute fucking Maxell tape and I'd write down like, you know, this is the name of the song. This is the album that's on. And then I would fucking like, you know, I've always kind of been into art. So I'd draw like a really cool album cover and, you know, and my wife to this day still has the fucking mixtape I gave her in 1998. You know what I'm saying? You know, so, but it's just kind of like, and then there's people that like, oh shit, you hear it on so many different music podcasts. People are like, yeah, man, this guy gave me a tape. On one side, it was fucking Black Flag Damage. And on the other side, it was fucking, you know, Agnostic Front, Victim in Pain. And it changed my life. You know what I mean? And there's so many fucking, like, you got that older kid in the neighborhood, that older brother, or that dude that's kind of like, you know, or the record store guys that come in like, hey, you know, I'm by the new Metallica. And like, Metallica? You heard Slayer? Dude, come on. And then fucking like, no, I'm not gonna let you buy Injustice for All. You're gonna fucking buy Rain and Blood, you know. And then you come back, oh fuck, you know, I need some more shit like this, you know. Have you heard fucking Iron Maiden? Like Iron Maiden's fucking awesome, they're legendary. But have you heard Suicidal Tendencies? Holy shit, you know what I mean? And just, you know, got that guy that fucking turns you on to shit. And I've always been so grateful to like that guy. I had a couple of those people, you know, when I was like, you know, probably, you know, in the middle of high school, you know, I don't really know exactly. I mean, I discovered a lot of things on my own through Thrasher magazine, you know, like living in a really small town in Iowa. They sold Thrasher magazine and you go and there'd be ads for like, you know, Skate Rock Volume 3 or whatever. And you look at like, oh, you know, Bad Brains Excel, Drunk Engines, TSOL, you know, and then you're like, okay, this is a whole different world. I want to fucking like jump, you know, this is, you know, I'm over here. I want to fucking jump out, you know, and fucking, I want to go into this fucking, you know, dimension because everybody else, all the squares, all the fucking shitheads, all the people that fucking drive by and fucking, you know, throw beer cans at me while I'm skateboarding, they live over here. I want to fucking be over, you know, we're backwards here because of the fucking, my phone. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you want to walk through that fucking like that, what was that movie? Not Event Horizon, but that fucking where like they reached through that watery kind of fucking portal to
Stargate.
To Stargate. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
To me, like punk rock and hardcore, you know, was like on the other side of the fucking Stargate. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know, and then like you had those people that would fucking like, you know, reach their hand through and say, here, check out Black Flag, check out, you know, whatever, you know. And then I got wise to it earlier where I'm like, wait a minute, okay, Black Flag, they're on SST Records. What the fuck's SST? So, you know, I found Bad Brains. Yeah, right. And you find out Greg Ginn, oh, he's a guitar player for Black Flag, and he runs this label, and his brother draws the album, you know, album art for Black Flag, blah, blah, blah. You know, and then I got into fucking Husker Du and you know, Bad Brains and Blast and all this stuff, you know. So it's just like, just having that fucking like that thing where, you know, you opens a door and you don't ever want to fucking, you don't ever want to look back. And with me being, you know, almost 50 years old, I'm still that dickhead, you know. I mean, I'll still fucking shit on stuff, you know. I mean, and like what you're saying earlier about hardcore, like right now, is a really, really great time for hardcore because, you know, for whether people like it or not, for better or worse, you've got fucking Knocked Loose playing Coachella, you've got fucking Turnstile playing on Jimmy Kimmel. Now the thing of it is, Turnstile, they're more akin to like say 311 or Fugazi nowadays musically, but they kind of had like that sort of like that Terror Trapped Under Ice kind of vibe when they started, but they never really forgot what. Dude, I'm telling you, Step to Rhythm, that EP. I mean, just Yeah, I mean, and I don't shit on these bands for becoming big
No.
because to me, it's like it's the old cliche. People say it. They say it on every fucking music podcast. High tide raises all ships. So like your dude, that he doesn't want to fuck with Bleeding Through, but you're like, dude, I don't understand why you don't like Bleeding Through because they've got keyboards, they've got fucking blast beats, they've got heavy parts, they've got fucking songs where he says fuck 27 times. You know what I mean? You should fucking love it, but
Yeah.
that's not his world, right? And then a
No.
band like Bleeding Through, they crossed over and they became part of that world, like the Ozfest world and that kind of thing, and it's just. But now that Bleeding Through they've reunited and they're doing shows again and stuff. Your boy that fucking like Slipknot that doesn't want to fuck with anything, doesn't know, he's gonna like stumble upon Bleeding Through and he's gonna be like, yeah, I'm in this band, and then you're gonna be like, what the fuck, and then I tried showing you that band 2 years ago. Like I've had people like that before.
Oh
It's
God, I
it's
hate
just like,
that one where you're like, no, I showed you
yeah.
this band already, and now they're like, mainstream popular, and now you
Mhm.
glean to it. That bugs the shit out of me.
You had to be beat over the head with them 1,000 times before you would fuck with them. And
Right.
when I tried to just get you to go check it out, but what's crazy though is like I'll even admit that there's certain bands where I'm just kind of I don't know, I'm just whatever. There's a lot of hype about them right now, and I kind of like push them away, and then I would just kind of like take a little bit in, take a little bit more in, and like two bands right now that are fucking just blowing up huge that I love that kind of get some shit from the super underground. But the thing about the super underground type heads in the hardcore scene, they don't really realize that there really isn't an underground anymore. Everybody can put their shit on
No.
Spotify. Everyone can put their shit every fucking where. It just depends on what sort of like social circle you're in or whatever, or who turns you on to whatever. But like Drain has blown the fuck up. People are saying that Drain's going to be the next fucking Turnstile. They just came off of a humongous fucking tour. And they got signed to Epitaph, and they're like, their singer Sammy is like the fucking like the sweetest fucking most positive dude ever, and they're a fun fucking band. They got beach balls on stage, but they rip, dude. They've fucking got like thrash riffs, stick fucking breakdowns, total Trapped Under Ice, early Turnstile type vibes mixed with fucking crossover thrash. They're fucking great. They came off of a huge tour, but their huge tour had fucking bands like Magnitude and Combust, and fucking just all these underground bands that like if you know your shit about hardcore, if you're a fucking snobby fucking 17-year-old kid that's too cool for school, you're into these bands. And so you can't hate on Drain because Drain fucking brought all these sick fucking bands on this big ass fucking tour, And then you get a fucking band like God's Hate, who their singer, Brody King, is a fucking professional wrestler in AEW. I think he's like heavyweight champion or whatever. And really? AEW is like fucking, it's almost bigger than WWE. And dude, God's Hate, they're the new fucking hate breed, dude. I swear to God. Like their new album, it's just fucking, dude, they're fucking sick, and they're just blowing up so fucking big. They played Tied Down Fest. They fucking played just all these big fests, and it's got members of Twitching Tongue. It's got members of Terror, like Martin from Terror plays guitar in that band and shit like that. So, but the thing of it is, on paper, John Carter from fucking 1995 would fucking hate these bands. You know why? Because it's just like, there's fucking all these people that are not in my world fuck with them. But then again, what's crazy about it is all these people that are in my world fuck with them and they love them. And I love both of those bands because it's like, hey, this is the shit I like. So why wouldn't I fuck with it? You know what I mean? So the way it is now with streaming and social media and just things just so easy to get to, I gotta kind of rearrange my fucking, my shitheadedness and my snobbiness and just go, okay, I'm going to allow myself to like this fucking band, because I mean, it's just like,
I got to plug the computer in.
Okay. It's like all bets are off, it's just kind of like, okay, the certain bands will play Coachella. And I don't think that with Knocked Loose playing Coachella or Scowl playing Coachella or, Turnstile playing Bonnaroo and stuff like that, it's not going to hurt the scene because I don't think it's going to take anything away from the underground. It's just going to bring people from the mainstream or above the surface to the underground, So
right.
I just remain positive about it, and I love it. And the bottom line is too, especially in my situation, if I'm doing a band, I'm just grateful to do a band. I'm lucky to have fucking 3 other guys to do a band with, and whoever likes what I'm doing, whoever embraces it, embraces it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be,
Yeah.
oh, this is just for you. Oh, you know, but a bunch of fucking guys I don't like, you know, in fucking, you know, affliction gear and fucking Yeti hats are digging my shit. Oh, fuck it. That's it. I quit. It's a fucking, you know, and, you know,
Yeah, who
so it's just
cares?
like, I really don't because dude, you know, like Metallica and Kiss are my two favorite bands in the entire fucking world. You know, and then after that, it's fucking Danzig and Agnostic Front. You know what I mean? So it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? But where I do care is if there's somebody that infiltrates it that brings a shitty attitude or a shitty vibe to it or something to where, like, you know, they just kind of just take the heart out of it. You know what I mean? Where it just becomes like a very mechanical, you
Can
know.
you give any examples?
Some examples of that? Oh, huge examples are think about like okay, I'm not gonna I'm just gonna shit on some bands because it's just
Go
whatever. Who
ahead.
cares? They don't know me, whatever. But like bands like Falling in Reverse and
Oh, perfect example.
just you know what I'm saying? And like
Yeah.
these bands, they came from a hardcore and emo adjacent world. You know what I
Right.
mean? Where they had like the black hair, the tight jeans, breakdowns and screamy parts, you know, and like now they're gigantic and they're playing with backing tracks live and all this kind of stuff. And it's just kind of like, you know, you go into Spencer's
Forward.
Gifts and there's fucking Falling in Reverse shirts, you know what I mean? And it's just
Yeah.
like, but what fucks with my head is there's people that'll be super into that, but then they'll also be into the love hate breed and they'll fucking get wind of Knocked Loose. So they'll get wind of Turnstile and just say, okay, you know, I need this in my life, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, you can't fucking police the scene, you know, like
Yeah.
there's a certain level of gatekeeping that I do think is needed.
Of
But then
course.
again, you know, I think you can just fucking live and let live. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
never really, the only positive thing I ever got out of gatekeeping was knowing my shit. You know what I mean? Or just knowing, you know, knowing my parameters and what I say. Because I was talking to somebody recently about like how, you know, when I get into something, how I know what to look for, right? So, like I
Right.
was talking earlier about SST. Okay, there's a label I like. Check out the bands that are on that label. Check out the bands that they play with that aren't on that label, kind of what world they exist in and who they fuck with and go, okay, cool. So I'm going to stay over here. Because if you think about it, you know, you got the big four, Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, right?
Yep.
So to me, back in the 90s, there was a hardcore big four. You know, you had Snapcase, Earth Crisis, Strife. And the fourth band was always kind of a tricky one, but I always kind of threw Sick of It All in there because they were
Okay.
so huge, you know? And they popped before those bands did. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, okay, so I know this world. I know the Victory Records world of Earth Crisis, Snapcase, and Strife. So I'm going to fuck with the Victory bands. And then I'm like, okay, Sick of It All, New York hardcore. So you've got Agnostic Front, you've got Murphy's Law, you got Killing Time, Cro-Mags, this, and that. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I stay in my world. And then if there's a band that's an offshoot of those bands, I kind of go in that realm. So, you know, and then as time goes by, you know, oh, hey, wait a minute, there's actually a scene. It's called the hardcore scene, you know? So, and I just kind of, that's kind of where I stay with shit. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you. So let's talk about some of these topics that we were going to discuss before. Um, let's see. When your identity is what you do, and when you can't do it anymore for some reason, elaborate on that, would you?
Okay. Well, so I think that, you know, you always hear people having, you know, a midlife crisis, right? And I really think that people can have a midlife crisis. They can have a quarter life crisis. They can have a three-quarter life crisis, you know, but, so a prime example of that would be like, say I was in Down to This for, you know, 10, 11 years, right? So,
Hmm.
so much of my fucking time, you know, my wife, my kids, my job, I did that. And then, you know, then there was the band. So we practice, you know, once or twice a week. We try to play shows every weekend that we could.
Yep.
So much of my life was looking forward to getting on stage for 30 minutes and going, you know, and then going to practice or whatever, because that was my outlet. That was how I stayed connected to a world that I wanted to be part of, you know? And and so like before that, I'm in bands and you're trying to find the right thing or whatever. But like as time goes by, you pick up friends along the way. You pick up connections along the way. You pick up cultural things along the way. Everything
Right.
from just stuff that examples like veganism, the skinhead scene, skateboarding, just different subcultural things that you pick up on that are part of you or you're into or whatever that and sometimes when you let some of those things define you and you're not doing them or it's taken away from you or it ends for some reason, you're left going, well, who the fuck am I?
Right.
So for 10 years I was the dude that sang for Down to This. The band's done. Fuck. What do I do now? So hopefully I still have some friends from then. You know what I mean? Or hopefully whatever.
Yeah.
Or so, how do I, in the pre-podcast world and the pre whatever. I mean, just fuck, dude. It's crazy because it's like you're left thinking, okay, so did I let that thing that I've been doing for the past 10 years define me? That was my drug. That was the dragon that I was chasing, and it's just kind of like, you can get addicted to who you either are at the time that you can't be anymore, quote unquote, or you're addicted to who you thought you fucking were. And then you're like, holy shit, you know what I mean? And I've just seen people that are no longer doing music and then, oh, okay, where are you? Where the fuck did you go? There's even guys like when they, a band I was in breaks up, and it's just like, I'm not friends with them anymore. I realized, holy shit, dude, before we were in this band, I didn't even know this guy. We were just looking for a bass player and he came in the band. He's gone and like nobody talks to him. Where the fuck did this guy go? This guy that I spent years, you know what I mean? Like fucking, coming home at 4:00 in the morning, from a show or, spending like, 3 days out on the road with, and then he's not there anymore. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like,
guys I played
and
in
then
bands
when,
with, I just would not rather talk to, truthfully, and it's not
100.
it not always out of animus. It's just, I don't feel like we're necessarily on the same wavelength, if that makes sense. Some where I'm like, I don't know about that, but like mostly, we just might be different people at different points in our lives, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's fucked up because like obviously, a band, you should be professional about it. You should put work into it. You should have a good work ethic. You shouldn't treat it like your day job when it's not your day job. Because I see these amateur level bands that are not signed, aren't really doing anything, but like, man, we got to fucking spend all this money on this gear and we got to do this, this, and this. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You don't have a label backing you up. You don't have an investor. You're just fucking shitting money out of your ass.
Yeah.
And down the toilet because you're trying to do what big bands do. Right. But you're not a big band. You don't have the money. The reason why these certain bands are doing what they're doing is because they've got support. They've got financial support or whatever, and so then the band fucking falls apart, crumbles, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, back to the original point, like it comes to an end for some reason. And, and you sit there and you're just kind of like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And then after like, what the fuck do I do now? You're like, well, who the fuck am I now? Like, am I going to go to a show and people be like, even gonna fucking talk to me? Because I have had motherfuckers that like after they got a hookup from me, they got like a name of a promoter or somebody from another band they wanted to work with. After they talk to me, for a few weeks on Facebook, then they get this connection. I go to a show, they don't even fucking talk to me. After we just went back and forth for like a week or so or 2 weeks on Facebook, but like you got the contact that you wanted from me and now you don't talk to me anymore. You know what I mean? Or just kind of, it's just like, so anyway, like, when something kind of comes to an end, you're like, well, fuck, and the whole idea of who am I is kind of like, was I letting that define me? And then you go through the whole existential crisis of like, was I pretending to be this person or is it really what I am? And then you go all the way back to when it started and go, no. I got into this because that's what I wanted to pursue. I'm this person and I want to like, I want to share and utilize my talent or what I know in this realm. And then, okay, then you finally got this band and you're doing it. Okay, cool. I see a guitar player that sits on the edge of his bed and he can shred. I'm like, fuck, man, I need to get in a good band. Finally gets in a good band. Sweet, dude, so he's not just fucking sitting on the edge of his bed fucking shredding all the time. and he's in a band, and then it's just kind of like, the band breaks up. Does this guy go back to just playing guitar and it's better? He goes, fuck, I'm going to sell my gear because I'm not in a band anymore. And then he's the guy fucking, working at the Verizon store. You know what I mean?
I had a guy, this guy, he's like an idiot savant. Like he plays guitar really well, but he can't life, man. He can't do anything else. And it was really,
I'm listening. Keep on.
Oh, sure. It's really unfortunate because, he's really talented. He just doesn't know how to interact with people per se. And I felt like that about myself sometimes, where I feel as though, it's really hard for me to fit in. And, that's why I, DIY, that's kind of why I like to do my own thing, but I at least have a modicum of tact when it comes to being in a band. I've been a total shithead sometimes, but this guy is notorious, so gifted, so talented, but just like I said, cannot get it together. And I feel like his talent is just being wasted because he doesn't have any sort of level of humility.
Yeah, I mean, is this the kind of person too where they would? Yeah, what was there a certain was there a certain arrogance to him while he was being this guy as well, or no?
Yeah, just arrogance. Like,
mm.
He went on tour with somebody, and I won't say the band. I mean, the band said, "Hey, you're a really good guitar player," and he said, "I know," like that, and it's like, "Oh, do you?" Like, just shit like that, and would always just make these offhanded comments at me when I was trying to propel the band forward, and I'm like, just shit to get under your skin, and I'm like, why? Why are you doing this? Like, why would you? What you've got a great opportunity here. Why are you trying to create a rift per se?
I think dudes like that are in a situation where they could take it or leave it. And they because they have just this arrogance about them, where it's just kind of like, it's kind of weird. It's like they're willing to put the work in because they might just be a natural. Like they're a savant. Like a guy can shred. He knows his shit about fucking gear. He can fucking take a guitar and put it back together, sit down and fucking learn a song by ear, da 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 da. Sometimes those guys don't really appreciate what the opportunity that they're given, because it's just like, this came easy, fuck it, you know what I mean? And like with me, with like a person with fucking like actual undiagnosed ADD that's always been a fucking like a C student in school, I fucking find people to play music with, and then like, oh, you guys like me? Holy shit! Okay, you like what I can do? I'm okay. I'm not fucking up. You guys, I can keep this thing I'm doing. You want me to keep doing it? Really? You go through a thing where you're just like, no, they don't really mean it. And they're like, dude, we fucking like you. I'm like, okay. So it's just like, and then my whole deal is like, I want to do what's best for the band, not like, okay, step aside. This is fucking Carter's band. I'm going to fucking rock. You know what I mean? It's not about that, and it's just kind of like,
and I played with guys like that too,
it's so irritating, and it pissed me off when people just be like, say I'd put a band together, like, oh, hey, do you know a drummer? Cool, got this drummer and whatever. And then you go to make decisions like, I don't know, man, it's your band, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, no. Because if it's a bad idea, you want to go, oh, well, it wasn't my idea. Fucking Carter wanted to do it, so it's whatever. You know what I mean? And just kind of like not take any fucking ownership or responsibility for any decisions, to where it's like, they're like, I just want to play, man. I don't care. And then when something comes up, like, wait a minute, fucking, what about this? It's like, no. I thought you just wanted to play, and I didn't think you cared. You know what I mean? It's just like, so it's just like these guys that are just kind of arrogant about it, and something just comes so natural to them. Like, it's like, as long as I'm over here doing my part, and I'm doing this, and then it's like one attitude I hate is like, if it comes to an end and falls apart, they're like, okay, that's fine either way, because it's just easier to not do it. Sure. It's just easier. Okay, one less thing for me to fucking worry about. I don't have to fucking go to band practice. I don't have to deal with these assholes anymore. Da da da. I'm just gonna go fucking make YouTube videos of me fucking, learning fucking At the Gate songs or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, my thing is, I want to be in a band because I want to play with people that, are better than me, that I can learn from. You know what I mean? Like, I would
Sure.
never really be in a band with guys that are kind of like at kind of like a lower level of just, it's hard to say, man, because I don't really believe that. I think the art is definitely subjective, and I think that if there's a band where it's like, okay, this guitar player can't shred, but he can write fucking cool riffs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or this guy can fucking shred, but he can't write cool riffs. And this
Right.
guy can't shred, but he's a fucking awesome dude, and he's fun to be around, and he's dedicated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's different types, different personality types for each band. But and then when you get into a situation with a marriage of 3 or 4 other guys, and then it comes to an end, you're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And then it's
Right.
even like
And that's a
when the
great
other
analogy. It's like you're married to 3 or 4 other different individuals, and you gotta deal with conflicting personalities, and you kinda gotta know how everyone ticks and what's gonna make someone happy, what's gonna piss someone off, just um, what's ultimately gonna make the band work most efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing of it is too, I hate more than anything when somebody starts off a band with no game plan, no strategy, no I don't give a shit who you are. Like, you're emulating something that you love. You're a
Or
band that you like. You're either going, hey, I want to do a band that sounds like this band or these bands I like,
yeah,
or you know what? I really, really fucking love this genre. I want to do something that's the opposite. I don't want to play the kind of music that I like. I want to play something else. And that's totally fucking cool too. But as long as you have a fucking plan, I hate to say it, you need a fucking identity as a band. So people
yeah,
watching you and listening to you know what the fuck they're looking at and listening to.
right.
I mean, you can't just go. There was the days when a guy, hey, I'm just a fucking hillbilly from the sticks. I'm just up here playing. Oh, we're gonna take you to fucking, to Sun Studios and record your 45, record, and you're gonna be a star. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not the 50s. It's not the 60s. It's so different nowadays. I mean, and there's people that I'm around. Back when I was in North Carolina, and people that I'm around here in Iowa, that like they think that they're just going to get discovered, but you really have to kind of
oh,
like
man.
network and look at it like a business.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit, coming from Hollywood, that there's a lot of that too, where it's like, a lot of I went to a conservatory where there were a lot of international students, and they're like, "I'm in Hollywood, I'm a star now, come find me," type thing, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
you got to put in the legwork, and you got to actually get yourself out there. There was one girl that was there that she really busted her ass, and she ended up getting in some bigger films, and of the alumnus that were there, which were like, Marlon Brando, uh, you know, Steve McQueen, all these other people. She got her picture up there with him, and they were pissed. They were pissed. And it's like,
Jesus.
you should be celebrating that. You should be, championing that. I Envy to me is one of the most damaging character traits, because
Yeah.
like Morrissey says, we hate it when our friends are successful. I love it. I love
Hmm.
it. I love seeing my friends do well and making moves and stuff like that. And, I don't know if this sounds selfish or not, but it's like, hey, why don't we collaborate and see what we can do? You've got skills, you've got connections. Let's see what we can make of it, rather than that motherfucker, blah blah blah. Oh, fuck him, fuck him. Like, that's more telling of you
Yeah.
than it is of you know it is of them, because they're making moves, they're succeeding, and you're pining over it, and you're pissing and moaning about it when you could just be bettering yourself.
Okay, can we do something real quick? Can we
What's up?
put a pin in that real fast? I gotta go piss. Can we? Can I
Yeah,
go? Can I go take a piss real quick?
let me play a little. Well, I don't have anything anymore, but I'll just go ahead and I'll rattle on and prattle on about stuff that's going on. So yeah, let me just
Okay, give me.
remove you from the stream. Yeah. So John's gonna go take a little piss real quick. Um, we're completely candid here. So as you can see down there with the banner, we've got Hell's Heart Co. At bigcartel.com. That's my merch store. Please check it out. We got a bunch of different designs up there. We got We got a Bad Brain shirt that we're selling. It's a benefit shirt for HR. He had a headache fund because he wasn't able to go on tour, but now he's got a different GoFundMe because I guess he's trying to buy a van as he doesn't have funds to tour. So please help by going to the website and checking that out. There's a whole bunch of other movie themed T-shirts up there. There's some hardcore. So they said it was bootlegs, but I've had them authorized through certain members, so it's not really a bootleg. But we got that going on, and please check out all my previous videos from this channel. Bunch of good interviews on there, and we're going to be having some cool interviews coming up. So I think you'll really enjoy those. What's going on in my life right now? Well, back in North Carolina, as many of you know, my apartment got doxxed while I was in LA. I wasn't too well liked while I was there. Try having contrary political opinions to the status quo that's there, and they're not going to like it. So I'm back here and I'm living, and I'm currently restructuring and trying to find different avenues to kind of utilize my talents, so to speak, and trying to control my anger through meditation and what have you, Hare Krishna and whatnot. Okay, so John's back. All right.
Sorry about that,
yeah,
everybody.
hey, I was just plugging the website, and I was just talking about merch stuff that I've got going on. As you can see, like I mentioned, hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. So where were we? We were talking about
basically, people that just kind of like their mindset and like their overall being just isn't really quite made to mesh with other people in like a band scenario, or like any kind of creative realm. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
and how those type of people will take it for granted. You know what I mean? And so that's, and with what you do, the original point is, does this person like, is this kind of like a thing that they do as a defense mechanism to not have to fucking really,
I think
find themselves or deal with their own bullshit?
I've dealt with a few characters because it's so pervasive in Hollywood. It's so like I said, that envy just bleeds through their veins, and they always they hurt others. As they say, hurt people, and just because they see somebody else doing well, they want to knock them down a few pegs, and they want to piss them off or try to get under your skin. And I just hate that. I loathe that. It's different when ball busting, things like that, but when it's like intentionally trying to sabotage someone, I just hate that shit. It's like, stay in your own fucking lane. Like, you do you, I'll do me. Of course there's competition, but you should compete by doing better, not trying to sweep the rug out from someone, like that to me is just a fucking cheap shot.
I like basically when someone's just like, hey, check it out. I figured out this hack. This is what I did. You know what I mean? Like, you could benefit from learning this hack as well. I like that, because and then just kind of what we were talking about earlier, not to prattle on about hardcore, but like so much of the scene that I came up, in the 90s and early 2000s, it was about like, oh, I like your band. Let's do some shows together. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'll get you guys some show. Cause when I was in Eclipse of Eden, we befriended the band Love Lost But Not Forgotten. And, dude, great band. And some guys from that band have gone on to do some really fucking cool shit. Like, anyway, I'll send you some links later on, but yeah, anyway, so they came down from St. Louis when we were in Sioux City, and they got a hold of our singer and like, hey, do you want to do a tour? So we're like, fuck yeah, we love you guys. You guys, seem to like us. So we did like a 2-week long East Coast tour, and after that we came back and kind of remained friends with them and stuff, and saw them going. And when we were on the road, we met some other bands that we're still friends with to this day, and we helped each other out and everything. And there's all these kind of like these 90s hardcore Instagram accounts and different pages and stuff. And they will have pictures of like my old band and the other bands that we played with and stuff like that. So it's just, and it kind of shows that, and then you look at people standing in the crowd, you know what I mean? Like a lot, probably firsthand that a lot of shows back in the day were floor shows. You know what I'm saying? Like a VFW hall or some kind of place,
Oh yeah.
whatever. And you just see all these people standing around as a guy, a picture of a guy throwing his guitar up like this, or someone jumping in the air or whatever. And then you see, kids standing like this, or people like freaking out. But like, it's just, oh, that's so-and-so from that band. And they were with, whatever, it's just kind of like everyone, when the one band is up there playing, at the floor show or whatever, the other bands they're playing with were up front watching them, and that's huge. They weren't sitting back by the merch table or sitting in the green room or sitting in their fucking van or whatever. It's like, oh shit, we just got off stage. We're going to go pack up our shit and we got to hurry up so we can go see, the other band that's playing tonight. So we would all get up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's one of the kind of disenfranchising things about going to a show. And I was up at a show here in New York recently, and I will equate it to the fact that the crowd was kind of old, and I mean it was a birthday bash for Drew Stone of New York Hardcore Chronicles. Used to be in the band
Legend.
Antidote. Don't call it Antidote around him though, because that band doesn't exist
Yeah,
anymore.
he's got
But great guy. And
Incendiary Device, I think, is his new band.
Incendiary
Yeah.
Device. Yeah. I'm like, that's a mouthful, man. And everybody remembers I went to LA wearing an Antidote shirt, and so I always kind of have that memory. And but it's punks and hardcore guys that are in their 50s. Some are close to their 60s now. I mean, that New York scene,
Yeah.
it's been around forever, and those people are all just such close friends. I kind of felt like a little bit of a fish out of water, but that was actually my third time being up in New York, and kind of being able to experience that crowd. And there were people around that recognized me, that were like, "Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you again. Hey, where do you live here?" And I'm like, "No, I happen to be up here a lot, and really great scene, really it's nice getting to know some of the musicians up there. But yeah, definitely a lot of geriatrics in the crowd, and so it was kind of hard. I'll tell you a band that I heard recently. The singer's coming on the show is Concrete Ties. That band is sick.
Mhm.
They were fucking awesome. Female singer, just really like crushing, like thrashy parts, crushing breakdowns. And their bass player was a stand-in bass player that was basically learning the songs while they were playing them. And he was good. He was like he had it on lock, man. I was so impressed with their musicianship and their level of skill. So yeah,
Yeah.
and hardcore kids can kind of be a little standoffish, I guess you could say, but then eventually I think once they warm up to you, then they'll start to set it off a little bit.
I think they want to. Some people want to find out if it's like, okay, I don't know you. I'm not going to be a dick to you, but I kind of want to see, if not like if you're
They're
worth their
sussing you
time. It's
out.
just it's just kind of like, do you what do you get where I'm coming from? Because so much of hardcore, people that get into hardcore is because they don't fit anywhere else. I know it sounds like the oldest cliche in the book when it comes to the hardcore kid, but it's just kind of like, it's like, okay, so they're like, why are you here? Somebody walks in, okay, I know why he's here. The shirt that he's wearing, it's this, or I know this person from this band, whatever. But sometimes meeting new people seems to be kind of like I don't know if difficult is the word, but it's just like, just meeting new people. Because with social media, you just don't know who the fuck you're talking to a lot of times.
Yeah.
And then when you meet them in person, you're just kind of like, okay, well, you know me from Facebook. We're meeting at the show,
Yeah.
but are you like stalking me on Facebook? Are you checking out
Ooh.
every single one of my fucking posts? You're trying to learn,
Ooh.
where I work and who
Experienced
my
that
parents are.
recently, actually. And
No shit.
it's scary. It's scarier than you know, uh like I've always mentioned this before, like I used to think it would be cool to have a girl stalker. It is 100% not fucking cool. It is not
Nope.
cool at all. I don't like it. I
I'm
don't
just
like it.
fortunate. Not that being stalked is ever a good thing, but I'm just fortunate that I had mine when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, and the other person was in the same age group, and it was relatively harmless, but it was still creepy as all get out when
Oh,
you
it's
see
the
the
worst.
same car drive by the coffee shop that you're at 4 times within
Ooh.
15 minutes.
Yeah, so let's talk
You
about
know?
that. Being a barista.
Oh shit. Well, okay. Like the thing about it is, dude, like, back in the 90s, um, first of all, with being just in a band that liked to just play tons of shows and would tour here and there, you wanted the kind of job that if you left, it wouldn't fucking matter. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like, okay, and then
I still
the
want
thing
those
about
jobs,
most,
truthfully.
oh, dude, see, you know what, for better or worse, like construction jobs are that. It's like, hey, I'm going to be, because they always need bodies, they always need
Yeah.
fucking laborers, right? So it's like, hey, I'm going to work for 6 months. Like fucking dude, Isaac from Crown of Thorns, Danny Diablo, that guy still does construction. You know what I mean? And it's just
Yeah.
like, he's gonna, hey, I'm gonna be going to fucking this place for fucking 2 months, and then I'm gonna come back and okay, we still need somebody to fucking sling concrete. Dude, some of the most legendary dudes in the hardcore scene right now that are doing things like fucking Stickman from Fury of Five. He's a union scaffold worker, and like or concrete, one of the two. I can't. And Richie Crutch from Wisdom and Chains. He's a concrete guy.
Richie's been on the
You know.
show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Richie from Wisdom and Chains?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah! I love. I'm a huge. Me and my wife are huge fans of Wisdom and Chains
Oh,
and
yeah.
the fucking Post America podcast and like
The Post America
Crutch
podcast.
and yeah, dude, it's
He
fucking
still won't
awesome.
have
But
me on his
kind of
show,
back
though.
to
I'm like, because I'll tell you something about Richie. He really, he and I actually got into it through politics. Like, he was posting on somebody's page, and I was like, I don't agree with this guy, but I like his band, and I'm going to have him on my show. And now we're friends, and we still kind of bitch
Mhm.
and trade barbs about politics and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all good.
Well, both of you guys are friends with Chubby, and like and that says something for the scene now. It's just people will just be like, "Oh, you talk to Chubby, I want to fuck with you," and then it's like, well, both of you guys are like, yeah, he's good, he's cool to me. So you know what I mean. So it's just
Experienced
kind of
that
that's kind of
recently too. Experienced that
yeah,
recently
dude. You
where they were like,
always
"Fuck that guy," and I'm like, if you're my friend, I don't give a shit who you are or what you did in the past. It's like, what are you doing now? Like, what are
well,
you
people
doing?
want to. Yeah, people want to know everything about everybody. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
or pretend that they do. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. We could get. I became friends briefly with Rick to Life from 25 to Life, who now
So did
is
I.
big time fucking persona non grata for a lot of reasons, and is anyway. I'm not even gonna fucking go there. But anyway, the barista question. So
Yeah.
in the late 90s, when you are single and part of an alternative culture, you want to be a place where there's other people of the opposite sex that are also single in the alternative cultures and are
Yeah.
interesting folks trying to find themselves in their early 20s, early to mid 20s. So he's like, okay, I need a job. This looks easy enough. Boom, boom, boom. Music, awesome people. I mean, I worked with some of the greatest people, people that I'm still friends with to this day, at these little coffee shops and stuff. But calling me a barista is a bit of an overstatement.
Yeah. It's
Like
unnecessary.
I was a coffee shop dude. I made espressos and lattes and stuff. You know what I mean? So and then like I wasn't like I didn't roast beans. I didn't. I wasn't like a concierge of coffee beans or whatever the fuck. But I
Right.
worked in numerous coffee shops where we did that stuff. But it's just kind of like, for lack of a better way. But I mean, coffee shops were my gig for a while. Like,
Right.
I lived in Sioux City, Iowa. I lived in Iowa City. And when I lived in Raleigh, coffee shops were my go-to because it was just like, okay, it's what I did for the longest. And the coffee shop that I worked at, originally, back in like the mid '90s, they're still open to this day. Fucking amazing place.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pier Street Coffee Works in Sioux City, Iowa. Great fucking place, amazing people. But anyway, so I worked there while I was doing like the bulk of like my early touring and shit. And it was just kind of like a place where you could meet cool people and you could network and go, okay, someone would see, and tattoos weren't so prevalent. Oh, hey, cool, nice tattoo. What are you into? Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, or like somebody's sitting
Isn't
there
that a damn
fucking,
shame too? That like, and I think that's something that mainstream culture, because I feel like mainstream culture aped a lot of shit from hardcore culture. For example,
mhm.
DIY. I saw just a normal restaurant calling something DIY. I'm like, that's a hardcore term, like, and then with
Yeah.
with like girls that will have full sleeve tattoos. I'm like, that was a hardcore thing. That was totally a hardcore thing, and you've co-opted it, and I want to say it takes the magic out of it a little bit, if that makes sense.
There was a female comedian that she said the funniest fucking thing about tattoos. She said something about like I think she was describing some guy or girl, and they were like, "Yeah, they seem like they really made the best of the tattoo gold rush of 2009." And I'm just like, holy shit, because that's when I started tattooing in 2009, and that was right around the time when like the LA ink and Miami ink and all that shit was popping.
Kat
And
Von
some people
D
are
and
like, oh,
stuff.
yeah, it's like somebody will see that on TV, and then like A&E or whatever would play a marathon of LA ink or Miami ink, and then someone will go, okay, well, I just got my tax return. I'm gonna go to a tattoo shop. Give me all Japanese sleeve, or give me all like American traditional or whatever, and then you'd see an abundance of like nautical stars for no reason.
Oh
You'd
yeah.
see, I mean, and I was guilty. Like my first fucking tattoo was kanji. You know what I mean? I was like fucking, 20 going on 21, and
Yeah.
but I was in, I was like, okay, well, I'm really into martial arts, kinda. So I guess I could get this tattoo, you
Yeah.
know. So, but so it's just crazy. You're totally right, man. Like, there's just like a whole ethic, like that DIY ethic, do it yourself, kind of like, from the ground up sort of thing. Poor people that maybe didn't even graduate high school, starting a business, or becoming an entrepreneur just from hard work and trial and error.
Yeah.
And that's what fucking hardcore and punk is.
Yeah.
And like you said, DIY is being a thing, and then there's the DIY channel, I believe, and then fucking like the post Gavin McGinnis Vice channel thing, where everything's we're gonna do a retrospective on this subculture and twist it to the narrative that we want this subculture to be about, and you're just like, fuck,
I love
stay
Gavin
away from.
McInnes, by the way. I think he would be one of the coolest guys to hang out with, just because he's so curmudgeonly and he's so crotchety, but he's also right most of the time. Like a lot of his perspectives, he said something the other day about not wanting to be a dad or something, and he's like, the guys that don't want to be dads usually make the best dads. How he's
Oh,
in,
for sure.
saying how, like he's like, oh yeah, he's like, Ryan, you don't want to be a dad. He said, because he said, and you would make a great dad. What, you play video games and you fly drones and stuff, like that's perfect, and so
Mhm.
um and that's one of the things too, where I'm at this point in my life where I think I'd like to have a wife and kids. I mean, I know I would, but there was a point in my life where I was just kind of fighting that, and I was like, nah, I don't want that. Nah, I don't want that. And then I'm like, well, I'm essentially a big kid still, so. I was like, I guess it would kind of make sense. Look at this cool bass guitar I have. Ooh, this is fun. Oh, I got a
Mhm.
Nintendo Switch. Hey, you want to play Mario Kart? Let's play Mario Kart, and so when he frames it from that perspective, he's very like, he's very grounded and realistic in that way.
You're speaking my language with that, because like I've got a 23-year-old that's a staff sergeant in the Air Force working on F-35s right now.
Wow.
And yeah, and I've got a 19-year-old that's in college studying social media marketing.
Yeah.
And both of those kids, you know, I didn't want kids, you know, or
Mhm.
didn't think I wanted kids, but when they came along, oh my God, dude, I was fucking it was so fun. I loved it because, you know, first I had one boy, 3 years later I had another boy. You know, it's just like these are my homies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you know, I got them into the music that I like. I got them into like, you know, like I have been out of video games for a long while, but you know, but I had a fucking PS2 when my, you know, when my kids were really young and stuff like that. Then they became big Xbox guys, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you're totally right because it's just like, you know, I am part of a very youthful culture, you know, like
Yeah.
with hardcore and punk and that, you know, it's just like, you know, it keeps me young and my kids kept me young. And in these, any of these assholes that say, oh, I can't do anything tonight 'cause I got to babysit. I'm like, no, motherfucker, that is your kid. You're
Yeah.
fathering. You can't do anything tonight because you're in a situation where your kid needs you and you
Right.
should love the fact that that is your priority right now. You should want to do that more than anything. I mean, don't get me
Of
wrong.
course.
You're gonna hit a burnout point where like, fuck, dude, I just want a night with me and my wife, or I just want a night to just go to a show and you know, and just kind of like, you know, and not have to worry about, you know, whatever. And then, but the whole time when you're at that show, the whole time you're
You're
at the
thinking
show, you're
about
thinking
your
about,
kid.
yeah, my son would fucking love this. And then, you know, me and my wife are out to eat or whatever. We're talking about our kids. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's fucking awesome, you know. And then like shit, dude, like on a couple of different down to this recordings, my oldest son sings on a couple of songs, and it was the fucking coolest shit ever, dude. There was a big string of shows for a couple of years where my son, when he was like between the ages of 7 and 10, he would get on stage and sing backups. I just hand him the mic and he'd finish the fucking song. And then
That's
everybody would
awesome.
fucking be up at the front of the stage singing along. And dude,
Yeah.
it was so rad to just stand there and watch my fucking 10-year old, you know, fucking, you know, like just up there, like with a mic and like handing out the fuck to the crowd at fucking 9 years old. And now
What's
he's
that
fucking,
band? What's that band that's on Century Media that Nathan Gray from Boy Sets Fire plays in with his son? It's called like not. It starts with a C or something.
oh shit. And the logo is like the brimstone logo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That was, yeah, they put out the one album. I can't remember, but I didn't know that his son was in the band. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. His son
Um,
plays guitar in the band, I think. Yeah. Which
I
I think is
want to
awesome,
say,
you know,
isn't it
and
called? Yeah, that's wow. That's one from the vault. I haven't thought about that forever. It's not called the Covenant. It's not the Covenant. It's
it's
something like
something
that or whatever.
similar. It's
That was a
got like
really
a
good.
yeah,
That
it's
was a
got like a metal sounding name almost. But
that was a
yeah,
really good band. I had no idea.
yeah, you know, to speak about the dad thing a little bit, you know, it's great that you know, I think that, you know, with my experience with my dad, you know, being able to connect through movies. My dad's a big gearhead. He's a big car dude. And, you know, I like cars more than I did when I was a kid, but I could never really connect in that regard, you know. And so, you know,
Mm,
to be able to experience like cool ass movies like Terminator and RoboCop with my dad, you know, that was like a game changer for me, you know. And now I find myself starting to like some of my dad's like music, you know, that he listened to, like, you know, Prince, Purple Rain, The Cult. Um, you know,
mm.
I've been on a real big Jerry Reed trip recently, you know, like that shit
Right
to
on,
me
dude.
is just it's fun, you know, and you hate it when you're, you know, I think it's part of that teenage angst where you just hate it growing up because you associate that with, you know, your father who is like an authority figure at certain points in your life, and then, you know, you know, then it really resonates with you, and then you really start to see how kind of similar you are to your parents. And you know, with the Indiana Jones movie coming out, one of my favorite films, and I would say it's probably my favorite at this point, was, you know, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, because I didn't realize it at the time. I just thought it was cool because Indiana Jones was punching dudes and things like that. But you know, it's really about him reconnecting with his father, you know, and it's a beautiful story actually. Like when you break it down, because you know, he had my father wasn't absent per se, but he was always gone most of the time. Also construction job, and so it was like being able to watch that movie as an adult versus a kid. I'm like, oh, I get it, And apparently Spielberg had some, absent father syndrome, and it was just like these two guys that kind of just, they're like, who are you? Who are you? Like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And then it was just like by the end of it, they've got a rekindled relationship, and it's just I guess that's what I love about cinema so much is like the thematic aspect of it.
Well, I mean, what's really great about that is, with me, having, one boy that's 19 and one that's 23, is when my kids were younger, like they were into what I was into, like when they were like in elementary school and middle school, I got them into like a lot of the music that I was into. I mean, shit, I remember when my oldest, I think it was his second or third birthday, we had a Kiss themed birthday party for him.
That's so
And
cool.
and he was super into that and shit. And and I've got friends of mine to this day that are like, that were at that party, that are like in awesome bands, that are fucking like, successful DJs and stuff like that, that are like, dude, I remember fucking Nick's Kiss birthday, that was amazing, da da da. And then when he was in high school, he all of a sudden didn't fuck with any of the music that I listened to at all.
Yeah.
And he just got into his own thing, which was cool because he got into like drill rap, underground hip hop and stuff like that. So what he was into, he nerded out on it. He knew his shit, which was cool. So I'm like, like even though he's not 100% into what I'm into, he's kind of abandoned hardcore and abandoned metal and stuff. At least he's a nerd about it the way that I am about my music. So at least he picked that up from me, and he called me like, I don't know, a couple months ago. He was like, hey, you know what? He was like, no matter what, there's certain bands that I'll still like, even though I don't like hardcore and punk rock and stuff anymore. You know what I mean? And then like about a month ago, he was like, yeah, I've kind of gotten back into rock music again. You know what I mean? I'm just like, so it's like you kind of, things kind of come full circle, and like, and my youngest, he's like the fucking spitting image of me in so many ways. And he goes through different phases and just, he wants, like I said earlier, he wants one of everything, he's he's super into fucking like death metal. And then he's really like Chief Keef and fucking, a lot of like the new hip hop and Killer Mike and everything like that. And it's just, so, but then he still doesn't forget where he came from, and he's like super into like for instance, like being into hardcore and thrash. He got into sneaker culture because it's like, oh, these guys in thrash bands wear these fucking weird old school like Nike Dunks and shit like that. So and then the hip hoppers, hip hop groups and rappers are into fucking. So he's a big sneakerhead and shit now. So, but as long as the kids have a thing, if they've got a culture that they're into, and they've got like a group of friends that shares that love of like a culture, a world or whatever. And they're, and they fucking nerd out on it, and they become experts in what they're into. And that's great. And, like with your point about the Indiana Jones thing, man, like it's like the old sad cliche of the Cats in the Cradle song, you know what I mean? And like, it's like, not as dramatic as the song, I guess, where like, what is it? Like, the kid comes around, wants to hang out with his dad, and his dad's dead or some shit, whatever sad fucking bullshit that was. Yeah. But like, it's just kind of like, hey, want to play catch? No, I'm gonna go chase bitches. You know what I mean? Do you want to work on the car? Like, no, I'm gonna go fucking play a pickup game with my friends. And stuff like that. Yeah. So, well, I was your world when I was little, but now that you're a teen in your early 20s, you don't want to hang out with me or whatever. And then like they get older, and you're just kind of like, man, fuck, dude, that's me. I'm looking at myself aging. I'm looking at myself, I went like this past Father's Day, like me and my wife, we went and hung out with like my dad and my mom and my sisters and my brother-in-law and stuff. And we all got together, and it's just kind of weird. Like when you think about like, where I'm at, and like kind of like how far I've come and shit that I've dealt with to get to where I'm at. And then I look at my dad, and I remember seeing him go through shit and seeing where he's at right now. He's like in his mid 70s and stuff. And it's just kind of like, my dad becomes more and more of a loving and more loving, more spiritual, and more patriotic. as an
Yeah.
older guy, because bottom line is he's learned to appreciate things in general. He's appreciative. He's got gratitude and appreciation. I'm not just because he's, possibly in his last days, but it's just like, I don't, I just fucking appreciate shit. He's so loving, and then you see that and you like, and I've always been a very, affectionate person. And I've always like, because every fucking day when my dad would drop me and my sisters off for school in the morning, before we started walking to school with our friends, before we started driving, just like, we'd always give them a hug or a kiss when you drop us off. You know what I mean? It was something that
Yeah.
my mom was always like that. My family was always a hug and a kiss at night, tuck us in, whatever. I'm so grateful, and there's motherfuckers that like, that come from broken homes, and, but they at least have that one parent that, or both that still love them or still affectionate, that they're not in the same home or whatever, but just like, whatever your situation, everybody's situation is different, but just kind of like learning to appreciate and have gratitude,
Sure.
is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes a long way, and I think you live longer that way too.
I think so too. One last thing. One of the subjects we were talking about was music, bands, movies, TV you are supposed to like but don't. Why and awkward moments pertaining to the movies,
Oh
films,
shit.
TV things. Can I give you one of mine? I'll tell you
Yeah,
one that I
please.
could never. I Game of Thrones. I just couldn't get, and every Game of Thrones, and I'm like, ah, you know, I I couldn't. I with streaming, I could not commit to 8 seasons of elves and dragons and things like that. It was just never my deal. Uh, why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Dude, no, I completely fucking agree. It's like, okay, as a young kid, I loved Star Wars,
Yeah,
but I think I liked Star Wars because when I was a young kid, it was the most exciting thing going on, right? And then
sure.
in 1996, they remastered them and they came back out. I'm like, oh shit, this is that thing I fucking love. And then I'm like, I love this, don't I? Fuck, I don't love this. Fuck, what's wrong with me? And then like I was like, okay, I'm at the store. They got fucking new Star Wars. Oh, I gotta buy the Star Wars toys. I gotta
Yeah,
fucking buy Star Wars shit. But this is my thing. And then I'm just like, man, I really fucking don't care about Star Wars. I mean, because it was my world when I was little. But and it's just kind of like, fuck.
I could
You
care
know,
less about it more than ever now. I just
I mean, same. It's too much. When you had the fucking three movies, okay, cool. It was,
perfect,
it was like, oh hell yeah,
perfect.
oh
When they did
Jedi's
the
on
expanded
USA.
when they did the expanded universe with the books and stuff too, I was super into those, because
Oh, for
that was
sure.
like that was like the punk rock and hardcore of Star Wars, where Star Wars movies were like the mainstream shit, like
Hmm.
that was like, ooh, these are books that I mean, I shouldn't say that nobody knows about. Like the Timothy Zahn series was like, they were New York bestsellers, but like, it spawned into all like different sub stories and new characters and stuff. And I'm like, this is cool. But now it's just like, I said they should have been making Star Wars years ago. And here they are, like, like they're just it's overload. They're just vomiting Star
Hmm.
Wars on us. And I'm like, stop, can't we just keep something sacred?
I highly agree. And it's just crazy because like I said earlier, with having the big four, and it's just like, okay, when I would have, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica. I've loved all four bands, but then there's always one of those four bands that you could kind of like pass on. And for me, it was Megadeth, but I still like them. I don't really, it's whatever,
Yeah.
cool, whatever, they do their thing, you know. And but like with movies and stuff, like with Star Wars, I was so hyped up because dude, it's so crazy that you said that. There was a sort of kind of an underground punk rock sort of vibe. And I don't know if you remember, but there was this, for some weird reason, in the late 90s, uh, in the fucking cultural lexicon of hardcore, Star Wars and Simpsons were very prevalent, big time. If you were a fucking straight edge hardcore kid or a hardcore kid, you had VHS tapes just full of Simpsons episodes.
Oh, sure.
And then you had the fucking VHS box set of the fucking Star Wars trilogy, and you probably had some old toys that you had ever since you were a kid, you know. And so it was like, okay, well, this is what we do. This is part of our culture. And I think that there's probably a bunch of people that got into Star Wars and got into Simpsons because of that. So anyway, but like I said, man, I can't give a fuck about Star Wars anymore. I can't give a fuck. In the Game of Thrones, dude, there's people that I would like hear talk about movies and TV shows on podcasts. I'm like, okay, well, so and so likes it. I'm gonna go check it out, right? So I mean, like, I love The Sopranos. The reason why I love The Sopranos is because fucking Goodfellas is like in my fucking top 3 favorite movies of all time.
Nice.
And and then like, I got into fucking He-Man because I loved Conan the Barbarian.
Sure.
Conan the Barbarian, fucking amazing movie. Conan the Destroyer, complete dog shit, fucking dog diarrhea, complete fucking shit. But anyway, like,
and everybody
so
thought
kind of
was a Conan movie, but it wasn't.
Yeah, but I kind of have a theory about that. I think that they quickly fucking put Red Sonja out because, oh shit, Destroyer fucking tanked. Let's get a fucking a hot chick with fucking red hair in here to fuck. It was a fucking like a shock and awe distraction. Like, oh, sure, we fucked up with Destroyer. Let's throw fucking Red Sonja out there. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you'd see fucking like what was it, Cole the Conqueror?
Cole the Conqueror takes place in the Conan universe.
Yeah, and then fucking Beastmaster. And all that shit. I liked anything that was this fucking like, borderline homoerotic dude with long blonde hair and fucking like totally jacked swinging a sword, like out in fucking, the Hyperborean era or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? And it's just, but yeah, man, it's so crazy because it's just like, there's always, for some weird reason, I can't think of a ton of examples, but there's always those things that like, oh yeah, you're supposed to like this. This is what you're supposed to fuck with, and then you're just kind of like, dude, you ever like gone and bought CDs or bought records, and you're like, okay, well, so and so the new such and such is out. I got to go buy it. Okay, cool. Yeah. You get it. You might hear the album all the time at parties. You might have gone and see them play live, and you might hear it in somebody's car or whatever, but then you realize, you know what? I haven't even opened this fucking CD since I bought it. I haven't listened to it on my own. It's just everywhere I go. And it's not even because it's a mainstream thing. It's just something that's kind of like in your fucking, it's in your world, right? Yeah. And you're just kind of like, and then you finally get that chance to like pop it open, and you're just kind of like, fuck, man, I really don't, I don't like this. And there was, there were so many fucking EPs and 7 inches and split 7 inches that came out in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like, oh, you got to get this. It's whatever. I remember when the Quicksand Brothers Keeper split came out. I went out and bought it because I fucking loved Quicksand. Still to this day, huge fucking Quicksand fan. And I was a huge fan of Brothers Keeper because Mike Ski was one of the fucking like nicest dudes ever. Yeah. And they were one of the most bizarre hardcore bands. To me, they were like a fucking weird snapcase. I fucking love Brothers Keeper, dude. His fucking like, oh, I can't say! His fucking weird ass fucking like, caw, like a pterodactyl voice, right? But dude, I got to see Brothers Keeper a couple times. Fucking great band. But anyway, I bought the fucking Brothers Keeper. Man. Dude, I've got that on CD upstairs, dude. Yeah, dude. I have the first 2 Brothers Keeper. It's funny because there's so much like 90s hardcore throwback going on right now. Yeah. People don't really talk about them. They talk about like Turmoil and Snapcase and other bands like that more. But anyway, so I bought the fucking like the Brothers Keeper Brothers Keeper okay, let me take this back. Brothers Keeper Disembodied split, not Brothers Keeper Quicksand, because Disembodied covers Dine Alone by Quicksand.
They do, yeah.
Anyway, so I was like, okay. So anyway, I was like, okay, I gotta have this. Went to the fucking record store, bought that. Okay, fuck, I got this, dude. I fucking have never put that CD in my CD player, and that fucker came out in like '97. I've got it. I took the plastic off. It's in. Never ever fucking listened to it. I've heard. I've listened to the Dine Alone cover on Spotify, and then I've got. I want to say Brothers Keeper or Endpoint did like some Misfits covers, like did a Misfits cover EP or whatever back in the day. I've got that on CD. Never fucking ever listened to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's just like, I mean, just shit like that. You know what I mean? Or like somebody would just be like, oh, you know, and then I was always going to Hardcore Fest back in the you know, the mid to late '90s, and then people are like, oh, they'd say there's a certain band, so and so's playing, da da da, whatever, and then I would just be like, all right, do you remember Los Crudos?
Yeah, the like gay hardcore band.
Yeah, fucking amazing. Well, Martin from Los Crudos, I think he might have been the only gay guy in the band, but I think it was
whatever.
Oh, Limp Bizkit was fucking sick, dude. Yeah, I love like Martin from I love all that shit. But the thing about Los Crudos though is there was so much fucking hype. They had the split 12-inch with Spit Boy that came out, so that was the first thing that I bought, and then I bought the I think it was called Illegal Porque 12-inch that they did. So I had everything by Los Crudos, and I had a shitty fucking turntable. So none of the Los Crudos shit sounded good on my fucking turntable. So I fucking never really listened to it. And then I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Okay, I gotta fucking get, because I heard them like on mixtapes and shit like that. So I dug them, whatever. They were a straight edge band from Chicago, blah blah blah. I loved them anyway. So I go to Cleveland Fest '95 to go see them. Motherfucker spends like 25 minutes talking, and they play 3 songs. And I'm like
Fugazi almost.
Oh,
except
Jesus
they play
Christ.
more music.
Yeah, I mean the thing about Fugazi, I mean, I got to see them one time, and they, you know, they bitched about people fucking, you know, stage diving and crowd surfing, blah, but it was just like after that point, I was just like, you know what, the hardcore scene in the mid '90s, it was like, okay, you'd see a Food Not Bombs table, you'd see a Free Mumia Abdul Jabbar or whatever his name was, table, all this activism everywhere, you know, and you know, for all intents and purposes, it was left leaning, whatever, who cares? I'm not left, I'm not right. I refuse to choose either side. It's just how I am. People can fuck off on both sides if they don't like that. So, but so much of the 90s was political activism in the hardcore scene. And then you had the people that were like these dudes that fucking, you know, worked construction in New Jersey that sang songs about punching people in the fucking face.
Right.
And I'm sitting here going, okay, I live in the Midwest where you had the Minneapolis scene, which was like the Profane Existence fucking crust scene, you know, like Code 13 and all these bands. And and I liked all that music. It was fast, gnarly, fucking raw music. But it was just kind of, I got to a certain point where it was just like, you know, these dudes, like they're in shape. They've got jobs. They fucking, they love their moms. They are, they're patriotic. They don't hate their country,
right.
but they hate the government. So I'm kind of more into that vibe,
right.
instead of like the stinky dude that's mad about every fucking thing. You know, that can't even lift up his sign because he's, hasn't fucking had a meal with any nutrition for weeks because he's trying real hard to be vegan, but doesn't know how to fucking do it, with, like the right way. Anyway, and no, I'm not shitting on anybody who's vegetarian or vegan or stands for anything, whatever, but it's just like, if you're going to espouse a certain political movement or stand for anything or whatever, fucking do it right. You got motherfuckers that have been doing it for a very, very fucking long time. Danny from Holy Mountain. He's fucking almost 50 years old, still vegan. Met him back in fucking 1999. He was vegan. He was probably vegan 4 or 5 years before I met him. So, and it's just like, but anyway, but there's so much of the shit in the scene that like you're supposed to fuck with, you're supposed to like, you're supposed to ride for it. You're supposed to just be like, oh, I want to be seen at the show, wearing the shirt of this particular band. And I found myself doing that with stuff that I didn't like. And I'm like, fuck. And then I found the stuff that I did like, and I'm like, fuck, dude. It's not cool to like such and such. Well, shit. So I had to like not tell my fucking friends or tell people that I liked. So, dude, I loved Hatebreed when they fucking came out. The Under the Knife 7-inch, when that first came out, it was brutal. It was hard. Like Cold as Life. Cold as Life came out. I was like, fuck yeah, Cold as Life is the scariest hardcore band in the fucking world.
Yep.
And I'm just kind of like, but it was like that. Well, that was tough guy shit. That's tough guy shit. They go around and beat everybody up, blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, if you lived in fucking squalor in a broken home, raised by fucking heroin addict, like you'd be pretty fucking bitter. You know what I mean? Or whatever their fucking crazy background was. So I found myself kind of gravitating more towards, for lack of a better way to put it, more violent, tougher, masculine hardcore.
Yeah.
And then the straight edge scene was awesome because it was a cool combination of militant, borderline violent, masculine, but with a cause. It wasn't just going around and fucking beating people up or doing things just to fucking be violent. It was just kind of like, I stand for this thing. I will fucking defend it. I'll go to fucking prison to free these monkeys that are being, vivisected and this and this. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to go that far, but I fucking, good on you, and then I fell in love with 108 and Shelter and fucking Run Double Run and like all these Krishna bands. And I'm just like, holy fuck. My whole thing was, I thought that they just looked cool. I thought that fucking Vic DiCara was the raddest fucking guitar player ever from 108. He was in fucking Inside Out with Zach De La Rocha from, Rage Against the Machine, and I'm like, and then then he played guitar on fucking, Shelter Quest for Certainty. And I'm like, this album is fucking hard. It's got
their EPs too.
Did he really? Okay. Did he?
It was one of their newer EPs.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Chaka Malik, Chaka from Burn, one of my favorite frontmen ever. That guy, I saw Orange 9mm was Sick of It All and Scratch the Surface tour like in '94. And fucking like, I'm standing on the side of the stage and dude, Orange 9, I'm like, you know what? Orange 9 is like a fucking more upbeat, fun version of Quicksand. And I'm like, and then Chaka had so much fucking like charisma. He was doing spin kicks on stage, and those guys, they kicked ass. But yeah, and so the Krishna core scene was so fucking awesome because I'm just kind of like, this is nuts because, these guys are serious as fuck.
Yeah.
And they look rad. They got the cool fucking beads on. They mean what they say. They're challenging everything that's going on in hardcore and in the world through just basically liberating themselves through love of Krishna and through bhakti yoga, as they call it as well. And as you know, a lot of these guys at a young age were they went through a phase where they're very fanatical and they kind of became too much for themselves to handle,
Been there.
You know what I'm saying? And so with anything you go to extremes, and there's I think it's a short documentary about a 108 tour, and those motherfuckers
that's a great documentary, dude.
Don't they look like they're gonna kill themselves? Like fucking like Rob Fish, he doesn't smile at all.
Nope.
He just looks fucking just fucking mad, and Vic is just mad, and I think Kate ended up or Callie, whichever, Kate 08, Callie Leita or whatever. She ends up she ends up marrying what's his face? And I guess she leaves the tour. But anyway, like they were fucking so extreme. And then like that tour that they did with Shelter, and then like, just the whole fucking just thing. I was drawn to it because it was so fucking intense, dude. And it was just like, and then there was a certain phase where I hated it. I'm just kind of like, this is too much. It's just kind of like, these people are fucking miserable. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, well, maybe the fucking, the science of self-realization and the quest for certainty and all this kind of stuff, this is fucking brutal. And then you hear interviews with everybody from Ray Capo to Rob Fish to Don Foose talking about like, okay, well, my purpose is to serve Krishna by playing music or doing yoga or promoting plant-based diet and this, whatever, so you don't have to fucking be a brahmachari for the rest of your fucking life. You don't have to fucking live in a temple. You don't have to fucking denounce everything and give up everything.
Right.
You can still live in the modern world. Like they say, you can be, you can live in the world, but not be of the world. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And, and what was really rad about that was being into hardcore and then seeing that and then hearing that. I was like, yeah, dude, like as a kid discovering hardcore and punk in the 90s, I lived in this world, but I'm not of this world. And like, I've taken that with me, even to this day. It's just like, no matter where the fuck I go, dude, like I've never been into sports. I like sports, some of the aesthetics of it. And I like some things that are involved with it here and there, and, I dig jujitsu and stuff. But it's just kind of like, I just never really found, the only place I really found, where I felt myself was on stage jumping around like an idiot with a fucking mic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, but I don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about awkward movie moments or whatever. Let me tell you one about one that I experienced. I was watching, some of Brian De Palma's movies, like he did Blowout, and then he did Dress to Kill, and then he did Body Double. And I was watching Body Double with my mother, and that movie is basically like the second part of it, like he goes into porn, and it's just like naked broads and like, I was sitting there watching that with my mom. She's like, I can't believe you showed me that movie. Truthfully, I'd only seen it one other time before. And so I kind of just forgot all that stuff was in there. And I was like, oh shit. And, one of those moments where you're with family members and like a sex scene comes on or something like that.
Dude, okay, I have a few of those things, dude. Like I remember my parents took I'm not sure if my sisters were there or not, but anyway, we went and saw Porky's in a fucking drive-in theater.
Oh Lord.
And that movie's all about like, boners and titties. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, so, yeah, dude. Oh, and then something, okay, with my kids, you remember MacGruber? Did you ever see MacGruber with Will?
To me.
It's great. But so anyway, like, Will Forte, fucking hilarious. So me and my wife, my kids were probably, I think my youngest was probably in elementary school, maybe like 5th grade. And my oldest was probably in 8th grade, maybe 9th grade or whatever. And so we're sitting in the living room, TV trays, eating dinner, watching MacGruber. And there's a scene where I think he fucks a ghost in a graveyard. And it's not just like, oh, from the fucking waist up, just kind of like, oh, they're just kind of hopping or whatever, and I've never seen the movie or whatever. There's full on his ass. She's riding him, her side boob, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fuck, I'm fumbling for the fucking controller or the fucking remote. And like a fucking pro, my youngest Luke was like, hey, so in school today, my fucking friend said blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So he was like, just kind of just turned from the TV and he changed this up. I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's my dude right there. You know what I mean? Because he knew it was awkward. So he just changed the subject or whatever. And he stood up and like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go get some more to drink or whatever. Stood up with his back to the TV to where, nobody could see what was on the TV. And it's just kind of like, whatever. I think he was like fucking maybe like in 5th or 6th grade. So it's just like shit like that, And then my friend Pete told me this awkward thing. Remember when neither one of us remember because we're fucking not this old, but when Cruisin', the Pacino movie Cruisin', right?
I've never seen it, but I know the movie. Yeah, the Friedkin movie.
You being a movie buff, you need to fucking watch Cruisin', dude.
He's a detective that goes to investigate murders in gay clubs, right?
Yeah, and then he has to kind of infiltrate the culture, and then he kind of gets into the culture in a way that he doesn't realize he's so deep into it. And then he gets into a relationship with this guy, and then he gets found out. It's just, and there's like he's investigating this guy that's going around to all these gay bars and different movie theaters killing people and stuff. There's actually this scene where a guy's getting murdered and they're playing Lion Share by the Germs. And I'm like, fuck, I want to say this is cool, but it's not cool at all. But anyway, like, my friend Pete's like, he's considered he's in his 50s, and he said that him and his mom went to go see Cruising, and he's sitting there and
Oh
he's just kind of
God.
like, but his mom was so fucking cool that she was just kind of like, Peter, does this make you feel uncomfortable? We can leave. And it's just like, well, I don't know what we should do in this situation,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm probably butchering the fucking story, but whatever. But just anybody telling me that he went and saw Cruising with his mom, and think about all these movies that came out like in the 70s, like The Omen,
Oh, they're
and
heavy. The Omen's scary as
yeah,
shit.
dude, okay. And the thing of it is, and you look at, I was looking at I had this big box of like a bunch of old issues of National Geographic and like People magazine and stuff like that from like the 70s and 80s. And there was like, the movie, the Omen, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Godfather, like all of it. And one of these fucking magazines had a full page ad for Deep Throat.
Oh God.
They fucking played Deep Throat in regular theaters.
They
And it
did.
said rated X,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of starring Linda Lovelace, blah, blah, blah. Just imagine in that culture of the 70s or the early 80s that you've got 3 channels, no cable. What do? Let's go to the movies. You bring the family, you go to the movies. You can get into a rated R movie as long as your parents are with you. Think about how many fucking kids were drugged to see fucking Omen, Deep Throat, fucking, Jesus Christ, dude, like World According to Garp. You know what I mean?
I've never
Stuff like
seen
that,
that.
It's
Robin Williams.
lauded as it's lauded as one of the first movies to really touch on like the transgender transgender normalcy, whatever. There's a scene where one of the characters is whatever. It's a really cool movie. It's one of those Robin Williams movies where it's not a fucking like knee slapper. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's one of those kind of, there was like a series of like these heavier movies that came out, in the late 70s, early 80s, where you're just kind of like, how is this a major blockbuster film? Because the
Subject
whole
matter so heavy.
yeah. And then it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day too. At work, we listen to Sirius XM and they'll put it on the 80s station or the 70s station. And there's some of these fucking songs, dude, that came out like in the 80s that were just so dark, that were pop songs. Like Phil Collins had a lot, not just with the obvious ones of like In the Air Tonight, but like, it's just kind of like, it's always the same. It's just a shame. That's all, just kind of like these fucking songs where it's just kind of like these dark songs where they're just talking about like, well, that's life. It's fucked. There's nothing for me anymore. Like all these borderline suicidal lyrics that were going on in these 80s pop songs, in a lot of the new wave shit, and it's just kind of like, and then there was movies that sort of had the same vibe, but like everybody was talking about it. People were around the water cooler. Kids were at school on the playground going like, oh, I'm going to fucking put a horse head in your bed. You know what I mean? Because they fucking saw Godfather on HBO the night before, and it's just like, we were like, I'm 47. I was exposed to so much shit. And like, your parents didn't know a lot of times what they were taking to see. And if you got cable, say, okay, well, you got HBO and Cinemax. We're going to bed. Good night. So it's a Saturday night. I'm going to fucking watch Cinemax. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Random fucking softcore porn is on. You know what I mean? And like,
been there.
Just fucked up shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, there was like, what was that series of movies that was like the girl? She was like, fuck. I can't remember.
Yeah,
there's an episode of Emmanuel. Yes, yes. And Seinfeld had that fucking that thing where there's movies that's like, oh, it's her erotic journey from Milan to Minsk.
I remember that fucking episode.
Oh, what the fuck was the name of that movie? Anyway, but it's just kind of like, Emmanuel. Everybody fucking in school was talking about Emmanuel. Oh my God, this girl, she's on a horse with her boobs are out, her shirt's off, and it's just like, and then do you remember there was this fucking, it was British. It was just this dude that looked like he would probably be, he kind of reminded me of Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones. But like, he was just this fucking pervert. It wasn't Benny Hill. It was this younger guy, this pervert that was just running around in England and just banging chicks, but it was a fucking comedy. And it was just like, he would just be like, he was like an Austin Powers type guy, but he wasn't like a international man of mystery. He was just this fucking guy.
I don't know. If you gave me some actors, I could probably guess it.
he kind of looked like fucking Roddy McDowell, like a young Roddy McDowell kind of dude. But it was
Okay.
just like, it was like late 70s, early 80s. And it was just this thing that was on Cinemax or Showtime that was just like after fucking 11 o'clock. And it's just this perverted young guy that was just like, oh, he's in the bed with old Mrs. So and so, and then fucking like the girl that he was, that he was fucking down the hall found him in bed with old Mrs. So and so. Oh, and then the constable's here, you know what I mean? And then just like
Yeah.
then they're chasing him around the hotel, and then all of a sudden there's a goat, and then a guy in a fucking pirate's uniform, and it was just like what the fuck? But it was like shot on film. It
Sounds
wasn't like a Benny
British
Hill thing
humor.
where. God, it was dude. It was the most bizarre shit. Because we were like laying there and like my mom would fall asleep. Me and my dad and my sisters would be watching something on HBO or Showtime. The movie would be over, like whatever the fuck, whatever action movie or something, and then like that would come on. All of a sudden, the weird softcore porn shit would come up on HBO or Cinemax, whatever, and like. My dad thinking that me and my sisters were asleep on the floor in our sleeping bags, after eating popcorn, watching the one movie. And just be honest, just be laying there on the floor looking up. I'm like, England is weird. It's just kind of like, is that all?
They did make some bizarre shit. Well, hey, John,
Yeah.
why don't you plug some of your stuff that you got going on real quick and, drop some links, some Instagram handles, what you got?
Okay. Well, as we said before, brand new, like fucking still in the oven band, Rise or Rot. Um, we're on Instagram and Facebook, the usual places. We don't have any music posted right now because we're recording in a couple of weeks. But if you're interested at all in anything that I'd done before this, just look up down to this the first 10 years. It's our discography CD that was put out on 1054 Records, which I want to say the band you mentioned earlier, Concrete Ties, I think they're on 1054 Records as well.
Believe
Either that
so.
or Upstate.
Upstate,
Yeah,
they may have been on 1054, but they're currently on Upstate.
Yeah, exactly. And so look, that's on Spotify, Apple Music, and everything like that. Just down to this first 10 years, a hardcore band I sang for like 10 years. Just to kind of, if you want to hear what my voice sounds like in the current band, I mean, you can check that out. I've been doing freelance graphic design, kind of DIY word of mouth for about the past 15 years under the name Carter Media Limited, LTD, for the longest time. And I recently changed it up to Imperium Empire Media. And I'm only on Instagram, and I've done album covers for my own bands, for different bands. I've done artwork for different t-shirt companies, some, subversive underground artists here and there or whatever. But Imperium Empire Media on Instagram, Rise or Rot on Instagram. If you give a shit about my incessant pictures of 90s hardcore CDs and current vinyl postings, it's X John X Carter X on Instagram. You can follow me there. I believe that's what I got going on there. But yeah, just the real straightforward shit. I appreciate you doing what you do. I'm a fan of the T&F podcast.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man. And it was great to have you as a guest. And so let me give the plugs here real quick. Subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. I'm being throttled by the algorithm, so it's not in my favor. But and then we've got Hell's Heart Merch Co., hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Also, Hell's Heart Co. on Instagram. And I think that's about it. I think I've got some other things going. Vegan Archangels on YouTube. It's a vegan charity group that I'm starting up. And also 10th Canto. It's going to be a yoga line that is going to be like kind of edgy and what have you. That's also on Instagram, 10th Canto. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, John Carter, thank you so much. And everybody, namaste, God bless, be good. I just realized it's Friday, and that's why there's not a lot of people in here. It is Friday, right?
It's Thursday, but
never mind. Thirsty Thursday.
Tomorrow.
All right. See y'all guys later.